Here, that is what it sounds like according to Ollie Marmol. Yesterday, they went with a bit of a trial run. That audio, by the way, courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest. Cardinals back in action this week. They went with a bit of a trial run last night with their new look lineup yesterday, Alex. And I would like to pass this along to get your thoughts on it.
This is just you trying to celebrate yourself.
Batting leadoff in left field was Lars Nootbaar. Batting second and playing first base, his new position, is Willson Contreras. Batting third, the spot that T-Bone's been begging for Brendan Donovan to hit.
Thought you were going to use another B word.
Playing second base is Brendan Donovan. Batting in the cleanup spot and playing at third is Nolan Arenado. And then to flip the order, Alec Burleson, your DH, batting fifth. Ivan Herrera is behind the plate, batting sixth. And then your 7, 8, 9, Jordan Walker in right. Victor Scott the second in center. And Masyn Winn is batting ninth and playing shortstop. I thought Masyn Winn's quote today in the paper to Derek Gould was great. He basically said, hey, listen, I understand I didn't have a good spring. If I would have hit 330 in spring, we wouldn't be talking about me batting at the bottom of the order, but I didn't. I had a bad spring. So, yeah, it makes sense that they're going to go a different direction. I personally have been asking for this kind of a lineup construction. Lars Nootbaar, his best skill. If you had to name one thing, what is he best at out of his attributes as a player?
Getting
injured. What would you guys say it is?
Oh.
Beyond that.
Making contact.
Walking.
Yeah, getting on base, taking a walk. That is most valuable in the leadoff spot. Brendan Donovan brings some of that on-base skill, but also has a little bit more contact than what you expect out of Lars Nootbaar. So I like having them batting first and third. I think Alec Burleson, his best skill as a hitter is his contact rate. That plays in the 5 spot. It's why I always thought that was the best spot for Yadier Molina in the Cardinals lineup. And then Ivan Herrera, I could make the argument that he should be higher up in the lineup, but whatever. 6 spot, you feel pretty good about it. They've got the left-right ability with this lineup. You've got that almost triple leadoff ability that T-Bone loves with Victor Scott, Masyn Winn, Lars Nootbaar as your 8 or 7, 8, 9 or 8, 9, 1, I suppose. What do you think of the new lineup construction that the Cardinals appear to be going with heading into opening day, Alex?
I like it. I think it's the best that you've got right now. I'm kind of on the same line of thinking as T-Bone. I don't know if I like Brendan Donovan in the 3-hole because he's not a typical guy there, but in my opinion, it's probably the best that you've got in terms of when we looked at his runners in scoring position last season, and if Lars Nootbaar could be the leadoff hitter that you expect him to be, I actually really like 5 through 9. I think you've got a lot more depth in terms of threat to the pitcher, in terms of what Burleson did last year, what we think Ivan Herrera can be, what you hope Jordan Walker becomes, and then when you've got that speed and contact rate with the base paths of Victor Scott and Masyn Winn. So to me, I know everybody's going to look at Lars Nootbaar, Willson Contreras, and Nolan Arenado. I actually look at 5 through 9 and think, man, that might be the opportunity to pounce on the opposition if those guys can all be rolling at the same time.
Yeah, I think the lineup's built as well as it can be. But
I was about to say, so give me your thoughts on how the lineup's constructed first, then we can get to what it is.
I think construction-wise, I think it is fine. You've got high on base up at the top there with Lars Nootbaar. I don't know if I like Donovan as the 3-hole hitter because though he is a contact guy, I view Burleson as a better contact guy, so I would personally probably flip those two. And then I don't mind the bottom. Like Scott and Winn there, yeah, that's perfect for bottom of the order guys. Herrera and Walker near the bottom. Allow them to kind of get their feet wet before you potentially push them up if they end up hitting their stride this season. The way it is constructed, I don't mind the way that it is built by Ollie Marmol. Again, my only quibble would be 3-5. I would probably flip those guys. But I think this is the best lineup he can build with the roster that he has.
So, I agree with T-Bone. Now, the question is, how good can this lineup be? Now, according to Jim Bowden, who does not like the Cardinals very much, it's a bottom 5 lineup in Major League Baseball.
Worse than Colorado, which is hard to do.
You have them in the bottom Colorado. 5 in Major League Baseball. Not ideal, certainly. I could see it. I'm personally higher on the lineup than I think many. I think they have a ton of above league average hitters in this lineup. I think you could see as many as 8 guys finish the season, hell, possibly all 9, above league average. That is a low bar to clear, though. The problem with the Cardinals lineup as currently constructed is that they have almost nobody outside of Willson Contreras that I could legitimately see in that 20+% above league average offensively. Like an 850 or better OPS, it's really hard to find those guys in this lineup. And typically to be a good team, you need at least 3 of them. You need at least 3 of those players if you don't have an elite level pitching staff to hit their way out of your problems that you could potentially have on the pitching side of things. it's hard to come by those guys. So over on The Athletic earlier today, they came through with how does your team make the playoffs? And they just did this for everybody, from the top of the league down to the bottom of the league. For the Cardinals, how do they make the playoffs this year? Well, according to Tim Britton of The Athletic, they do so similarly to the 2022 Cleveland Guardians, who came into the season having won 82 games the year prior. Cardinals won 83 last year. Were projected to win 77 games that year. The Cardinals right now are projected to win somewhere around 78. And then they got an unbelievable season out of Jose Ramirez and Shane Bieber, who were their all-star type of players. And they had breakout campaigns from Andres Jimenez and Tristan McKenzie. That's what the Cardinals need. They need guys that are going to break out this season. Alex, when you look at that lineup, do you see a lineup that could have those breakouts?
Yeah, I do. I see a breakout potential for Ivan Herrera. I see a breakout potential for Jordan Walker and a breakout potential for Victor Scott. So I do see the potential for all of those. I think my bigger question is the Jose Ramirez one, but if Wilson Contreras is who we think he is, he's probably the guy that falls into that. I have no questions they have breakout potentials. I mean, this lineup is littered with those Cardinals X factors we always talk about, to where somebody comes through that you really weren't expecting to have a big year. So yeah, I could see at least 3 of those guys.
I don't see the breakouts. I maybe 1. I don't know if I see 2. And I think they need 2 for them to really be a lineup that can get them to the playoffs.
How the hell am I higher on that than you?
I don't know. I really thought you'd be down, and I was
Who's
surprised.
your breakouts?
I think it's Herrera. I think that would be the guy.
You don't think Victor Scott could do it?
I don't think. I don't know if he'd be the guy that would break out and really impact your lineup. Like when I'm talking breakout, I'm talking guy that's hitting in the middle of the order that can bring a little pop to this thing. Because this lineup is, man, if you loved the '80s Cardinals, welcome to the first to third lineup here. They don't have any slug. Like, that was their problem last year. They didn't hit for any power. And I look at this lineup and say it's the same issue. Now, the reason I say, like, who's the guy that can break out and be the impact bat that moves up in the order, I would say Herrera, because I agreed with, I don't remember who we were talking to. Keith Law, who said, hey, he's probably a doubles guy. He probably hits for power, but it's in the doubles variety. I think Herrera can break out, but I'm not sold on a Walker breakout. My goal for him is hopefully he's just league average this year. Same for a Nolan Gorman if he's in this lineup. I just don't know if they're going to get 2 guys to break out, and I'm not counting on an Arenado bounce back. I don't think that's happening. So if you have Herrera and Contreras be the 2 bats for you, I still don't know if that's good enough to get you to the playoffs. And then the second pitcher who breaks out for you, that I don't know who that would be either. I mean, you mentioned the Cleveland the Guardians. That they had Tristan McKenzie. Who's the guy that does that for the Cardinals?
I mean, it depends. Do you believe that it could be Quinn Matthews?
Potentially, but I don't know when you see him. And by the time you see him, it might be
too little, too late.
Yeah, exactly. By the time you see Quinn Matthews, it might be too late to save the season to get to the playoffs.
Totally fair. I think this team could be deeper than what they had in Cleveland. I would actually just push back against the comparison that Tim Britton had. I think that Cleveland Guardians team was star-driven. I don't think there's any chance the Cardinals in 2025 are star-driven. If the Cardinals are good this year, I believe it will be because of their depth. I think that the Cardinals will win basically the way that the Blues have, where it's like, hey, the Blues, they're not going to go, you don't have a superstar on this team. You've got really good players. I think Dylan Holloway's a really good player. Jordan Kyrie's having an excellent season. Robert Thomas has emerged once again. Turns out a very good player who had a weird month, in part because he probably came back a little early with the injury stuff. Like, they have very good players, not superstars. I think the Cardinals, if they end up being a better team than expected this year, it will be similar. They have a bunch of dudes in their lineup that are above league average offensively, and they have a bunch of pitchers, and then Sonny Gray, a bunch of pitchers, though, beyond that are around league average, a little above league average. And I think that the Cardinals, if they win this division, it will be about not having a glaring weakness anywhere on the roster. It does not feel that way today. I understand that. I'm not trying to sell you a bag of goods. I'm telling you, how does it look if they were to make the playoffs? I'm starting with the end point and working back. It probably looks as though they don't have any huge weaknesses, and other teams in this division do. They have glaring weaknesses somewhere on their roster.
And my question to that, because I think that's fair, and I think that probably is the way if they are going to be a playoff team that happens. Who's the last team that you can think of that didn't have star power to drive them, that was just a bunch of, like, above-average dudes?
I mean, the 2015 Royals were that. They won the World Series that year. But, like, you're asking me for a comparison that I immediately have to have off the top of my head. I don't know. I know for sure that team was that.
Yeah, but they had, like, elite back-end pitching.
No doubt.
And that's one thing that maybe the Cardinals have. It's also possible Helsley's like pitching for the Royals at the trade deadline.
Totally.
So that's the one thing I have.
You asked for a comparison, and that's the closest thing that I've got for you.
And that's fair, and I put you on the spot. It's just hard to picture, like, in hockey, it's easy to kind of go without the, hey, let's just have the depth and be able to just kind of have 4 lines that we can roll out there.
You can't win in pack mentality in baseball.
Baseball, I don't know if you can do that. I think you've got to have some star power, and more than one. Like, Contreras, to me, like, I think he could have a huge season for the St. Louis Cardinals, and I just don't know if it will be enough if he's the one guy that can be a superstar for you. You need somebody to be the Robin to your Batman, and if they don't have that, I don't think they're going very far.
And one place that we maybe disagree on a bit, if you're going to have that, I think it's probably Ivan Herrera. Like, Ivan Herrera, to me, when you look at the bat, he's the second most likely 20+% above league average offensive player. And I think third most likely, I know Cardinals fans won't agree with me on this, and that's fine. I think the third most likely guy behind Contreras and Ivan Herrera to have a 20+% above league average season offensively is Lars Nootbaar. He's going to get on base 36% of the time, and really it just comes down to, does he have for power or not? If he does, probably in a pretty good spot. If he doesn't, he's going to be like 10% above league average offensively. But he's going to be an above league average hitter. And then it just comes down to how many games does he ultimately play. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Ollie Marmol gave the opening day lineup a spin yesterday, and they won 3-2 against the Memphis Redbirds. Yeah, baby. Woohoo!
You should have just said they won 3-2.
Nolan Arenado hit a homer.
I
You
thought
should have said
maybe
3-2.
Team's looking good. We're ready for opening day, ladies and gentlemen.
I thought maybe it was against, like, a big league
A
team.
3-2 win against the Memphis Redbirds is the equivalent of a 6-2 loss to the Minnesota Twins.
I do not care. Everybody came out,
It's probably
relatively
true.
speaking, at least healthy. Even though there was a bit of a scare there with Mason Winn, but he's fine. Don't worry about the health stuff. The
Typical Cardinals to say it's
sickness
fine.
stuff with Sonny Gray, he's probably fine as well. Everything is gonna be fine with the 2025
All right,
Cardinals.
Bob Marley.
That should be their slogan.
Everything's
The
gonna
Cardinals,
be
everything's gonna be
all
okay. 101 ESPN is going to be broadcasting live from inside Ballpark Village on Thursday for opening day. Cardinals home opener finally here. Will be set up just steps away from the stadium. TMA and BK and Ferrario will both be live Thursday from Ballpark Village. Our opening day broadcast is presented by General Pest Kit Services, Rawlings, and by Budweiser. Coming up in 15 minutes, there was some surprising news on the NCAA tournament earlier today. Some numbers that I did not expect to see today, Alex. We'll get into that in 15 minutes. We will hear from you at 314-399-9646. The YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. But coming up next, we will talk about the St. Louis Blues and a player that will not be in the lineup tonight for them. We'll tell you who that is next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So the Blues, are back in action this evening. They will be going up against the Montreal Canadiens. And Alex, they will be without Dalibor Dvorsky in the lineup, it appears. According to their skate earlier today, Dalibor Dvorsky was not in the lineup. And you think you might not have a decent idea as to why this is the case. What's going on with Dvorsky? Why would you hold him out of this game?
Well, one is because, look, he played fine 2 days ago, but you're going to get him up in the press box for a game so that he can watch from up top, which I know some people might get frustrated with, but they've done this with so many Blues players over the past years, of Robert Thomas back when they won the Cup, all the way to Zach Bolduc earlier this year. They did it with Jake Neighbors as well. This is typically what happens. You give them a taste of the NHL, let them play, work over film with it, and then sit up top and have them watch the game. My gut would say he comes back into the lineup on Thursday, barring the health of Pavel Buchnevich. The other factor into this is what we talked about yesterday. It's the entry-level contract situation. He's got 9 or 10 games total that he is allowed to play at the NHL level. And
9 games, once you get to the 10th, that's when the contract slides.
Correct. And that's regular season and playoffs. I need to correct myself because yesterday I said the playoffs did not count. It's regular season and playoffs. You can play 9 in the NHL. If you play more than 9, then you burn that first year of your entry-level contract. So,
and that's according to puckpedia.com.
Yeah. So, and it's also according to like a lot of people in the Blues front office of how they viewed this. So that's probably why. But I think the bigger reason is more so, look, Jim Montgomery liked the way he played, but we talked about this. They were very cautious with how they used him in certain scenarios of only offensive zone faceoffs, got some power play time. With Oscar Sundqvist coming back into the lineup, it's a natural centerman for that third line. Now they really get the opportunity for Dvorsky to have the morning skate today, work with Steve Ott, look at some video with the team, and then sit up top tonight right next to Mike Babcock Jr. and David Alexander and Al McInnes and Alex Steen and Doug Armstrong and watch the game. This is the development process that you always see with these younger players.
So there's a quote that actually just came out. This comes from Jeremy Rutherford via Jim Montgomery, who was asked about Dvorsky, and he said, quote, "It's very tempting to keep him in there, but I think as a coach, you've got to reward the guys that have gotten you here. Those guys have battled hard, and they're all fresh and rested right now, so we're going to go with the horses that got us here." I think that's totally fair.
Yeah.
Sonny is a guy that has been playing pretty good hockey. He's going to be back in there for you today. Texier is going to be on the wing. I would personally have liked to have seen Dvorsky get an opportunity on the wing in this game. So you go from having so much of those defensive responsibilities in game one to, hey, bounce out to the wing, see what it looks like out there for you. It's a different perspective on the game, but it's also this. You're going up against a hell of a hockey team right now that is playing some high-level hockey. Montreal has, I think it's 12 of their last 13 games they've earned a point. It's a big game for the Blues. They want to go out there and put their best foot forward. So going with Sonny, putting Texier out there, I have no issues with the way that they're constructing this.
No,
and, again, you also have to play the long game here. So if he's potentially going to be in your lineup more often than not down the stretch, you're going to have to find games where Dvorsky's not a part of it. So get him in there, get his feet wet. Now he goes back and does the Bolduc plan where you're looking at all the film, and now you go into the next game and you're watching it from up top. You get different perspectives on it. Hopefully you get an even better version of Dalibor Dvorsky whenever he goes out there for his second opportunity.
Well, and this was another quote from Montgomery on Dvorsky. JR tweeted it out. "Today's an opportunity to be a part of a morning skate for him, be part of a practice tomorrow, watch the game tonight, grow and learn, and to see why we've had success here recently." So it's acclimating him to be a part of the team, which me personally is always beneficial for a 19-year-old just figuring it out at the NHL level. And what I actually would like to see will happen if he plays on Thursday is put him at the center position and move Sundqvist over to the wing, because Sundqvist is just a natural centerman for you, and he can play the wing. He's done it before. And in the defensive zones, maybe you flip it around so Sundqvist takes the draws, but Dvorsky can learn the center position with an Oscar Sundqvist. It's what we talked about, why the Blues potentially trade for Ryan O'Reilly at the deadline, because when Ryan O'Reilly is here and when Dalibor Dvorsky is there, you can have them both working on the same line together.
All right, Alex, we have a few people that have texted this in. Did you get confirmation on this?
I have not gotten confirmation on this yet.
A lot of people are saying, Jamie said yesterday on the Fast Lane that the games don't matter with respect to his contract. He said that when he was in the AHL, the NHL clock immediately starts. Quote, "I signed a 3-year deal, first year in the minors, then 2 in the NHL, then I had to get a new contract." That may have been the case for Jamie, and that is the case for some guys that sign their contract after they turn 20. But it is called an entry-level slide. is the way that this works. Now we're getting into the minutia, but just because I know Jamie's the former NHL player, so people will side with him over what I'm telling you on the radio right now. Totally understand, that's fair. But based on the way that these contracts work, according to our understanding, public information-wise, when a player's on an entry-level deal and they sign it at 18 or 19 years old, so under the age of 20, which Dalibor Dvorsky was, their entry-level contract is slide eligible is what it's called. So if they play less than 10 games, you can slide that basically. It expands by a year to the following season. So instead of it starting that year, it would then slide to the following year. That is something that he is currently eligible for, talking about Dalibor Dvorsky. Guys that have already had their contracts start this year among the players that are in this, Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini, that's it. No other player that is in Dalibor Dvorsky's situation right now has played more than 7 games. Yeah. So he is one of them on this list. His contract, he would have to have, again, 10 games played at the NHL level before it officially converts this year.
And the big reason why this is for Dalibor Dvorsky and may not be for other players is the age. He signed the contract when he was 18 years old. And with that slide eligibility, when you sign a contract when you're under the age of 20, that slide eligibility comes into it. They have something called a slide trigger that talks about certain players and how many games they can play. That's what falls into the line of Dalibor Dvorsky.
Yeah, so that's where we're at. Again, you don't have to believe us. That's totally fine. I'm just telling you when the contract
and when I get confirmation, I will let people know. I've sent a couple of texts out.
That's my understanding on the way that it works. All right. Alex, tonight, Blues back in action against the Montreal Canadiens. And for the guys that are going to be on the ice, which does not include Dvorsky, they're going up against a hell of a hockey team that is playing some really inspired hockey right now. It's basically the mirror image of the Blues, but on the Eastern Conference side of things. What are you looking for in this one?
Back to their old style of hockey, because now you're getting back into playing. In my opinion, this is the toughest opponent you've gone up against since you took on the Dallas Stars. I think Montreal is better than LA, and I think they're better than Vancouver, hence the points in 12 of their last 13 games. I'm looking for them to get back to that high-intensity style, not have those lulls in their game. Now, at some point, it's going to happen. Montreal, of course, is a very good team as well that will get that puck moving and forecheck opportunity, but what the Blues have done so well since the Four Nations break, with the exception of that Chicago and Nashville game, was they limited the amount of momentum pushes by the opposition. That's what I'm watching for tonight. Do you go back to killing plays in the neutral zone? Do you go back to those quick exits to where the other side is basically one and done? Because prior to that Nashville-Chicago back-to-back, which is understandable considering how exhausted they were, you started to see that seep back into their game. Can they go back to that style? That's what I'm going to be most focused in on, because you're playing a playoff caliber opponent tonight.
I want to see a couple of things. One, Bolduc on that top line. I'm curious about it. I really want to see how that looks going up against a quality opponent for the full 60 minutes of this game, because he's going to get that opportunity again with Buchnevich out.
Yeah.
So I want to see him up on that top line. And then the other thing is just, can they get back to that game that you're talking about? Because they did not play all that well over the weekend. That's fine. They won the games. They win them 8-2. Ultimately, that's the goal right now. It's a pass-fail test, and they continue passing the test. Good. I am not going to be overly critical about it. But if they play the exact same level of game that they did over the weekend, and instead of playing against Chicago and Nashville, they play that against Montreal, or later on they're going to get to this weekend, Colorado, they probably lose those games, or at least end up maybe with a point at best in those games. So I want to see them get back something closer to what they were playing against Vancouver or earlier in this stretch when they just dominated Anaheim in that game. So if you can get back to that, feeling pretty good about it. Booch being out is a little disappointing going into this one, but get him back healthy for this stretch run. You'll be good to go. So Blues back in action tonight. Pre-game coverage begins at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to questions and answers in about 15 minutes, but coming up next, I've seen a lot of people, and I certainly would fit myself into this category, complain about the lack of upsets in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. Doesn't seem to be represented in the viewership numbers. What's the disconnect there? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they take on the Montreal Canadiens. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. Cardinals opening day will be on Thursday when they host the Minnesota Twins. Sonny Gray will get the start for St. Louis. Pablo Lopez on the mound for Minnesota. 3:15 is scheduled first pitch. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See him at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, so a lot of people, myself included, have not been all that into the NCAA tournament this year, just because it's not the tournament that we're used to. Where are the upsets? What happened to the Cinderella? Arkansas? That's our Cinderella this year. It feels a little different than what you have come to expect in the NCAA tournament. However, Alex, I did find this surprising today. March Madness this year is delivering its best viewership since 1993. They are averaging more than 9 million viewers through the second round of the NCAA tournament. On Sunday, by the way, the most watched games were Kentucky versus Illinois and Duke versus Baylor. It is the most watched tournament so far in 32 years. What explains this? Because typically we would see these upsets that are close games where you've got a 2 versus a 15 or a 3 versus a 14. And that gets everybody to tune in. At least that is my assumption of the game, especially as it gets close and late. This year, it feels like it's something completely different that is bringing viewership to the table. Do you have anything that you would attribute it to, Alex?
Not concrete, but I can throw 3 things out there and see if any of those wet noodles stick to the wall. One, it's because people love to bet. And guess what? College basketball time of the year. I could say this personally because 10-leg parlay on Circus Sports Illinois on Sunday. That was fun for me to watch when I got home finally.
There might be some truth to that. I like that.
It's also, there's just not much going on right now. I mean, you're still in that spring training phase of baseball.
But that's the same every year.
It is, but
And we love spring baseball.
that was a wet noodle look that fell off the wall.
The
okay?
first one I like. Okay, you flung that noodle against the wall. It stuck a little bit. The second one came right back. It was a boomerang.
Imagine if somebody heard that when they just turned on the radio. Yes, I flung that wet noodle at the wall and it came right back to me. Number 3 is people like powerhouse matchups.
All right, two of
the 3 noodles. That means macaroni's done. That third one was just the odd one out. Those are the 2. Like, betting obviously is the one that always comes to mind, and this is the perfect time to bet because you have so many games going on at once. But I do think every time you get best on best or top team versus top team, that's a lot more appealing. Like, on paper, it's top team versus Cinderella team, and it's like, oh, this will be fun. And then you kind of phase out of it pretty quickly. But when it's top team versus top team, it's like, oh, okay, we're seeing powerhouses go head to head.
That's for me what appeals to me. I always say, like, give me a couple upsets early. I want a couple of Cinderellas early, and then get them out of the tournament in the second round, or at least by the Sweet 16. So that way, by the time we get to the Elite 8, I've got the powerhouses, man. I want to see Duke and Auburn and Florida. I want to see Houston. I want to see Tennessee. I want to see the best programs that had everything available to them this year. I want to see them represented in the Elite 8. That's my personal preference. I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, that's the way that I prefer to watch the NCAA tournament. And this year, we're getting a lot of that, man. You get to this Sweet 16 and the matchups that we're expecting to see come up on Thursday and Friday. Dude, listen to some of these. Maryland versus Florida. The Crab 5 going up against the Gators. You got Duke versus Arizona, who has Caleb Love, who's one of the most accomplished NCAA tournament players currently eligible in college basketball. On Friday, you get even what I think to be better and more compelling matchups with Kentucky versus Tennessee, Michigan versus Auburn, and Purdue, who just won a national championship, going up against Houston. These are big-time programs, man. You've got coaches that people are familiar with. Izzo, still coaching right now. Cal, he is your Cinderella story this year. He's been around for 30 years in college basketball.
I didn't know he could still get to the Sweet 16.
That glass slipper apparently does fit.
I mean, it's big programs, coaches you're familiar with. It's star players like Cooper Flagg that are still playing out there. And you got these big-time matchups that are available to you. So, yeah, I think that is a big part of what explains it. And I could be convinced on sports betting has never been more available to the public. And there have never been more people that are participating in sports betting, which makes you more likely to not only tune into the game, but the bigger deal with sports betting it makes you tune into the beginning and stick with it until the very end. And that's huge for viewership numbers. T-Bone, what if you had to theorize why these numbers are up for the NCAA tournament, in which we have fewer Cinderella stories than we have in 20 years? What would do that for you? What would explain it for you?
That was the light bulb going off in my head. So I have a tough time deciding if it is the powerhouses still being around, because by the time we get into that second weekend, for the most part, a big chunk of them are still hanging around, right? Like, even in the years prior, when you do have a Cinderella, for the most part, your 1s and 2s and 3s are typically still dancing. So I don't know if it is that, but I think it is worth using as a theory for it. I think it is the sports gambling. I think that is the biggest thing that is driving this, because I had seen a report before the tournament had started that they were expecting this to be the biggest bet year on the NCAA tournament. And if that's the case, the more money you're putting down, like you said, it is easier for people to do it. And then when you do it, you kind of want to watch the basketball game when you put that bet down. So that would be my theory behind it, because when I talk about powerhouses, they're typically still around by the time you get through that second weekend. And if you're talking about like star power, I don't know if this is a stronger year for star power than it has been in the past. There's a couple really big names. Like Cooper Flagg's probably the biggest one in the last couple of years for the NCAA tournament, but I don't think him alone is driving this. And there are good players across college basketball, but I don't feel like it is like, wow, there's a star here, there's a star there, there's like a star in every game. I don't think that's the case. A casual basketball viewer, and I'm one of those, I can only name a handful of guys that weren't on Illini or Missouri this year.
That's what it felt like a couple of years ago, too, didn't we? Or was it last year where we talked about it's like, I don't feel like
last year was really
that's what it was. In that regard. I feel like the biggest star was on Gonzaga, and it was like, or it was Zach Edey with Purdue, and it was like,
I should correct myself. They went to the national championship. I said 1-9. They went to the national championship, but of course, the Fightin' Dan Hurley's won the national title last year.
Fightin' Dan Hurley's.
Yeah, I think there are some stars in college basketball. I think there are also just a lot of players that have been around for a while and are really good. And to me, as somebody that grew up loving this sport, and that lost a little bit of my appreciation for it over the last decade with the advent of the one and done rule and guys just like going in and out. They come to the college basketball and then just leave after a year. Like it wears on you as a fan. At least for me, it did. Seeing guys stick around a little bit longer, seeing guys like Mark Sears at Alabama, who has been there for a while now. Like, you see them go through the ups and the downs of a program, and you consistently see them in March. And that's part of what builds these storylines, right? Like, college basketball is most known for coaches because they're the ones that stick around for 10, 15, 20 years at any individual program. It's why when you talk about Michigan State, nobody that's prognosticating the tournament brings down, for the most part at least, very few, break down the players that are on Michigan State. It's Izzo. This is Izzo season, right? He's the one that leads the story. And so the main characters of March in the NCAA tournament are the coaches. And a lot of the coaches that we have known most over the last 20 years are still represented in college basketball right now in the tournament. So I do think that plays. I think it's kind of a weird phenomenon with college basketball specifically that we're watching for the coaches that are not actually on the court. But I do think it's part of what leads to us feeling a connection to some of these teams in a sport that lacks any sort of a real connection.
I think that's the case across most college sports. Like, even college football has some of that, right?
Some of it,
I
but
think
the
it's
guys
got
are
more
there for
star
3 years.
power. Yeah, but even then, like, a lot of these 2 years is nothing compared to these coach. Like, Nick Saban sticking around for whatever it was,
Sure,
2
no
decades. Not Georgia Smart, Kirby Smart, who's been at Georgia. Like, I think that's what makes college sports so unique. Is there are players, and I would agree, college football is a little bit different from basketball because guys do stick around longer. But even then, you kind of find yourself like, oh, well, like last year, you looked at the Georgia Bulldogs, you're like, man, I don't know if I trust that team. You're like, they got Kirby Smart, though.
Exactly.
Right? Like, he'll figure out the defense, and that's all they need.
100%.
Who cares about Carson Beck? And he even left for Miami. So I think that's the beauty of college sports. That's why, like, when I talk about the Illini, baby, I talk about Brad Underwood, Brett Bielema. The guys know how to build a winning culture.
All right, I did want to ask this to you guys real quick. T-Bone, you brought up Illinois. We'll start with them.
Oh, man.
Illinois season has come to an end. Brad Underwood is still going to be there. We don't know which players are going to be there next year. How do you feel about the future of your program? After what we saw this year, everything you went through, the ups and the downs, and as many downs as there were ups for you, how do you feel about the future outlook of the Illinois Fighting Illini?
I think it's fine looking forward. I don't know that it is the best it's been under Brad Underwood. I think the best it had been under Brad Underwood was the year 2 years ago it was, when he was able to retain Terrence Shannon. When he kept Terrence Shannon in school for one more final season and then was able to build the roster around him, that's when I was like, okay, now you might be able to do something. There were some questions of what they were going to do, and they ended up going out and getting Domask, who was awesome for them, and he had Coleman Hawkins, too. So he had his number 1 and number 3, and we just needed that number 2 guy with him. That's when I felt best about the program. The reason I still am kind of fine in the direction they're going is I trust Brad Underwood that he's going to be able to build another winner because he's done it, and he's done it in different styles throughout his tenure at Illinois. This year it happened to be kind of the one-and-done approach. And though it wasn't as successful as I would have liked in the tournament, it was still a good basketball team. The only reason that I'm not like super high going into the offseason is I don't know who the pillars are he's going to build around. In fact, I don't even know if he has them. If Isevic stays, he's one of them. But he's better off being like the third guy on your team. So you got to go out and find those top 2. But I trust Brad Underwood will be able to get the job done. So I feel okay about where they're going.
I feel pretty good about Mizzou. Now, I say that with a caveat. They need to add. They need to get better. But what stood out to me this season was the freshmen. And I do think when Dennis Gates gets this thing going the way that he wants to, I believe it will be a more traditional. We get these guys from the high school recruiting ranks, and we develop them over time. Because if there's anything that this staff with Dennis Gates has proven the ability to do, it is the development of their players. They did it a couple of years ago with Kobe Brown, who developed his three-point shot. I think we saw a very different version of both Tamar Bates and Caleb Grill this year than we had previously seen from them with Mizzou. So I think they are a very good developmental staff. So you go into next season, Ant Robinson is expected to be back for year number 3. T.O. Barrett, who I thought was amazing in that game. He was the only Mizzou player that I trusted on the court in that NCAA tournament game. He was a true freshman. Freshmen stink. College basketball, college football, freshmen are terrible, generally speaking. T.O. Barrett wasn't. He's probably going to be one of your starters next year. Mark Mitchell, I hope to see a little bit of a step in his game. That's still in there potentially for him. I think he's going to be a starter. And then you need 2 new starters via the transfer portal. You've got other freshmen that are coming back next season, so hopefully they take a step forward as well. Peyton Marshall, Anar Boateng. You've got Marcus Allen coming back, Trent Pierce coming back. It's a pretty good core group of players. You need a big man, and you need a really good guard/forward that can drive to the bucket. You get those things, I feel like you're back to the NCAA tournament next year, and you're starting to build things the way that Dennis Gates wants to.
I feel like a lot of people are concerned about Mizzou because of the coaching, where they feel like Dennis Gates was out-coached. And me personally, I didn't in that game. I felt like it was the players that didn't.
And even if you wanted to lean that way a little bit, fine. Hopefully he gets better.
Yeah.
Another year of development. He's only in year 5 of him as a head coach.
And I personally think it was the players that just didn't come through, and you just mentioned it in terms of development for guys that are coming back for a second year or third year under Dennis Gates, and on top of how great he's been in the transfer portal these last couple of years. I feel really good about Mizzou going into next season.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. You can also get them in right now on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. If you guys have any questions, get them in right now, and we will get to those in questions and answers. From the 801, Alex, I saw your tweet this morning about Chychrun signing a new contract. It got me to thinking, what do you believe the Blues will offer for Broberg and or Holloway in their next deals?
Man.
So to give background on this, Jacob Chychrun, a guy that we have talked about, I think, for 3 years as a potential trade candidate for the Blues.
It's right up there with Jamie Alexiak.
Signed an 8-year, $9 million per year contract with Washington to re-up with them. So $72 million over the course of 8 years. That was the background for this question. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, and I just tweeted out the question saying, is this the starting point from Broberg's side in contract discussions? Because anytime you see a player in that position that's at least closely resembles who we're talking about, those are the ones that the agents go to and say, hey, my guy's this. I don't think the Blues will go straight into it and offer an 8-year deal. I'm sure Broberg's side is probably going to be saying, like, look, you want to lock this up long term, let's go 8 years. But
I would go the opposite. I would say the Blues side definitely wants 8 years. The entirety of his prime.
Maybe.
Yeah.
My only hesitation with that is I wonder if, I mean, in the past, Doug has been very cautious with that, to where it's like, hey, this was really good, but let's see it a couple more times. Like he just did this with Jake Neighbors.
But Neighbors profiled as more of a third-line player long-term.
Yeah.
Kyrou and Thomas, top-line potential players, 8-year deals. Let's get it done.
And both signed off their entry levels, correct?
Parayko, I think, got a 7-year deal.
Yeah, Parayko was right after it. Yeah, I could see that.
When he gets a player that has elite potential, he typically locks them up to get the upside involved.
Yeah, and the Neighbors one came to mind because he's young, and so that's why, because by that time, I think Parayko was already a few years in, because Parayko went from entry level to some type of bridge deal because he was still young, signed it after the
This would be the bridge deal,
Stanley
though,
Cup.
for Broberg.
Yeah, I guess technically it would be because of the RFA status, and I believe he still has one more year of RFA after next year expires. Yeah, I mean, my gut is going to be the Blues are going to want to lock him up long term. If you're Broberg, I'm not sure I want to sign long term right now because the money's just going to keep rising, especially if my playtime rises. But on the other hand, you got to think too, if you're an agency for a guy who's 23 years old who really never got the opportunity with Edmonton, you don't know what the future looks like, injury risks and things like that. If I got an 8-year deal in front of me, I might urge my client to take it.
I would do it on both sides. Broberg, I would do it on both sides.
You doing $9 million per year?
I think it's probably something similar to that. I think the thing that we have to keep in mind is how much the cap is rising. So it sounds like a ton, but this would not begin until the end of next season. So 2 years from now is when his contract would kick in. And with the cap rising the way that it is, that will be in year one of his deal, similar to what an $8 million contract was this year. Mm-hmm. Midway through that deal, it's going to be basically the equivalent of what you're paying right now to Colton Parayko.
Yeah.
So, what I want Broberg to be on a contract that is similar to what you're paying today, based on cap percentage, to Colton Parayko, hell yeah, I would.
Yeah, a lot of people texting and saying, guys, Chychrun's 5 years older. He's 20 points better. There's no way I'm doing that. Chychrun was not this player for the first 8 years of his pro career.
Well, there's also two different contracts from Jacob Chychrun that you could probably look at. His current deal, which was like 5.5 a year, something like that.
I think it was something. It was pretty cheap. I think it was like 4.6. It was pretty cheap because it's why we were talking about him.
It was like a 4-year, 5.5, something like that. It was the bridge deal that he decided to sign with them. So you could go with that, and then you get him for 4 years. You probably get him at we're talking about Broberg here.
Yeah.
$6.5 million per year, something like that. That's probably the bridge deal that you're looking at. Or you lock him up long term, and you have to boost the AAV because otherwise, why is the player locking that in? If I'm going to get more years at the same price in a bigger cap, that doesn't make sense for me. I better get a bunch of money that is backloaded on this deal to make it worth my while.
So Chychrun signed his AHL or his entry level contract. It was $925,000. There was no slide eligibility on that one, T-Bone, just to be sure. Then he signed a 7-year deal worth $4.6 million, which led him up to this, which now he's getting his big payday, and he's 26 years old. So.
Yeah, the 4.6 in today's money would probably be like 6.5.
Yeah. And look at where you're at right now with Broberg too, to where you've signed him. It's not 7 years, but you gave him a $4 million, and now you go to the next one. It's probably looking at close to that if you want to go 8 years.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 636. Guys, do you think that Jake Neighbors has a future in the top 6 when the Blues are contenders, or is this a guy that's a third liner on a legit contender? I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on this real quick, Alex. I think Neighbors can play on the top line for a contender. I think he will always be the third guy, though, that is interchangeable depending on what the matchups are or how your lines are playing at any given time. I think the best case scenario for the Blues is that they have a better option for them on that top line, and that forces Neighbors down to the third line. I think that's an ideal scenario, but can you compete with Neighbors as a top line player? I believe yes. I think he profiles best as a third liner.
Yeah, he's showcasing it right now, how he's played with Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. They've been one of the better lines for 2 weeks when they've been together. I think if you're going down a pack mentality role, anybody could play in any position that you need. But you're best suited, and the hope by the Blues is Jimmy Snuggerud's that top line winger, and Jake Neighbors is playing a third line for you to where he's providing you 20 to 25 goals on a third line like you signed Brandon Saad to be when you gave him that contract 4 years ago.
I think on a contender, probably prefer he's on the third line, but I think to what BK was saying, is it almost is kind of the, in my opinion, the kind of the Barbie role, right? Preferably probably on the third line, but if you need to get a line going, perfect guy to move up in the lineup.
He's playing Vegas. He's on their top line a lot of the time.
Exactly. Or if it is, hey, we've got an injury for 2 weeks, say it is Booch is out like he is currently, but of course he's on the top line now, but I'm saying when Snuggerud's here, then you can say, okay, Neighbors can perfectly slide up there and we don't feel like we're at a disadvantage.
Somebody from the 314 asks what I think is an interesting question. Guys, who are you more confident will be this the rest of their career? Dylan Holloway or Philip Broberg? Which guy would you have more confidence in giving the 8-year deal to from the team's perspective, Holloway or Broberg?
Broberg.
I would say Holloway, strangely enough.
The only reason I say not with Holloway is because offense is so fickle. Bounces don't go your way. Like, he plays a certain style, but is he a 70-point player one season and a 55-point player another season? I don't know if Broberg's ever going to be putting up 40 or 50 points, but I could promise you Broberg's going to be a guy who plays 23 minutes a night, stays in the positive on plus minus, and always showcases his speed.
And for me, Holloway, I have no questions about his game. None. He's fast. He plays hard.
Really, I'd say
checks.
both.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but like everything is translated. There's been no dips in his production for the most part. It's just been a consistent, like, it's a steady drumbeat from start to finish of this season of us saying, damn, Holloway's really good. Damn, Holloway's really good. And then we consistently are asking, what's the ceiling here? What's the ceiling here? What's the ceiling here? And it continues to raise a little bit. Broberg had an unbelievable start to the year points-wise, and since then has just been a good defenseman. Mm-hmm. He's been a really steady, good defenseman. So if I had to say which one am I more confident in the floor of what they're going to be, it's Holloway. But the ceiling for Broberg is pretty exceptional, man. You could have a 40-plus point producer defensively, and he's 6'4", skates like the Winn. Like, those guys are really hard to find. So I'd be fine with signing either of them. But if I'm talking floor, I would say Holloway's the one.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards Broberg. I kind of agree with Alex. I think offensive numbers can be kind of fickle, and I don't even know if it's necessarily on the player. It's their line mates, right? Look at what happened with Robert Thomas when Booch wasn't playing to his level early on in the season. It wasn't just a question of, we focused on Buchnevich, but we also said, hey, what's going on with Robert Thomas, especially that month where he really went cold. That's why I would probably lean Broberg. I mean, the correct answer is, yeah, both, but I would lean towards Broberg because even now, like, even if you said, hey, this is what he is and he's not as much of a point guy, I agree with what Alex is saying. He still is a guy that's a perfect number 4, top 4 defenseman as of right now, with still plenty of room to dream on because defensemen age like wine.
Totally.
The guy that Ken Hitchcock comped him to was Jay Bouwmeester with you guys. Bouwmeester had 4 straight years where he had 40-plus points, and that was early on in his career, and then he always maintained the same level of play, just the points were there. That's kind of my mindset with Broberg.
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it here on BK and Ferrario. But coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford joins the show to give us his insight into Dalibor Dvorsky, what the plan is with him moving forward, and what's the latest with both Colton Parayko and Pavel Buchnevich. Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider, joins us next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Cali Aaron Thompson hotline to be joined by our Blues insider. You can read all of his great work over at The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford joining us on the show as he does each and every Tuesday. JR, man, let's take a step back here for a second. There was a point in time early in this season where, I got to be honest with you, our Tuesday JR reports were not quite as exciting as they are today. And that is no reflection.
Shots fired.
That is zero reflection on Jeremy Rutherford and every reflection on where this team is at. How you doing, man? It's got to be fun to recover this team right now.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that setup. That sounds like a really...
JR, you always excite me.
Listen, I didn't think we'd get to a point where the updates would be too exciting this season. But I tell you what, I am being dead honest when I say this. In 2018-19, did I even dream that the Blues would pull that together and win a Stanley Cup? No. But I always felt that it could be so much better, and that team had the potential to be a team that went deep in the playoffs. Like, they had that roster. You know, people forget sometimes that going into the year they were a cup contender. With this team, I never dreamed in a million years that we would even sniff this point where we're talking about second wild card. Maybe going into the year, you know, a couple months into the year, you know, you talked about that being in the conversation. But once it kind of fell apart, and once you realize, okay, this team just doesn't have what it takes, I just would not have thought that we'd be talking about a team in the second wild card at this point.
That's a really interesting point, JR, and I wanted to get Alex's thoughts, and I definitely want to get your thoughts on this as well. When you think about the last 20 years here in St. Louis of, like, surprising playoff teams or teams that you didn't expect, whether it was at the beginning of the season or midway through the season, to get in, this has to be at or near the top of the list, right? Like 2011, 2006, they were surprise runs into the World Series because they didn't live up to expectations in the regular season. But those teams were contenders going into the season, and then they just got hot down the stretch.
The only other one I can think of, JR, is that 2008-2009 season, to where that was, what, Andy Murray?
Yeah, 2009, and they went on a heater in the second half, and Chris Masyn was unbelievable. Just saw Chris Masyn a couple nights ago, broadcaster with Nashville. Just an unbelievable second half of the season on Mason's back, and they got into the playoffs. To me, that's the only thing that compares to this. Obviously, you know, like I said, 2019, you know, they went the entire way, but you felt that team could be a contender and win a couple rounds in the playoffs, and so that's why this season, this finish is just so drastically different than any finish that I could have thought of.
What's wild about it, too, is if you take those three seasons, this one, 2018, 2019, and 08-09, the Blues have a better roster than 08-09, but 18-19 had the better roster than what the Blues have right now. But the difference for me, JR, is those are three teams that were playing in very different eras. That 08-09 was kind of walking away from the Keith Tkachuks and entering the TJ Oshie's. 2018, 2019 was at the peak of the development for all of these guys. And right now it feels like you're just starting out with what you're expecting.
Yeah, and you got kind of two different eras. And that's the thing that Doug Armstrong has always done so well, is he's had those two cores. I mean, you can talk about the veterans like the Schwartzes and Tarasenko's, but then you've got a new group coming behind them, and this is what you have now with the Braden Shens and those types of guys in the middle of the core, but then you have the Dvorskys and the Snuggeruds that are always on their way. I think that's how he looked at kind of continuing the success, and you haven't seen a lot of teams in the league be able to carry it on as long as the Blues have, and I think that's a reflection of why they've been able to do it.
From the 314, the praise pouring in from all directions. BK, pull your head out of your ass. 2011 Redbirds needed a huge Atlanta meltdown just to sneak in. All right, I apologize.
Jesus.
Clearly, that was the point of what
Get your information correct,
we're talking to Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN. All right, JR, let's get the injury update from you, if you don't mind. Pavel Buchnevich and Colton Parayko. What's the latest with those two?
Pavel Buchnevich, not a player tonight, but Jim Montgomery did say he's feeling better. You know, guys, this one's tough to analyze because it's been looked at as a sickness. They said there was a sickness around the team, but, you know, you have a situation where he took a pretty hefty hit in Nashville, came back. You wonder if there's any lingering effects of that hit. You know, the team kind of is in playoff mode now, so these injuries are upper body, lower body. But you think that could be the situation with Pavel Buchnevich. And then Colton Parayko on the ice today, skating with the team for the first time since going through that scope with the knee. And Jim Montgomery did use the words long ways off, but, you know, it was Jim Montgomery just a week or so ago who felt that he could be back before the 6-week timetable before Colton Parayko's reevaluated Sundquist, Letty both had maintenance days the other day, didn't play, but they're out there tonight. And as you guys probably touched on, Dvorsky not in the lineup tonight.
So what about that one, JR? Because we were kind of talking about, the reasoning behind it, and then we saw the quotes from Jim Montgomery. It seems to be par for the course how the Blues typically handle these younger players.
Yeah, and I think they were really happy with that first game, so you want to keep this positive momentum going. But the one thing that sticks out to me that Jim Montgomery said today is that you want to keep the guys who got you here in the lineup, giving you a chance to keep this thing going. And so I posed the question the other night with my article saying, how will they incorporate Dvorsky and then Snuggerud if and when he gets here? And I think Jim Montgomery gives you a little glimpse into that decision-making process when he says that you want to go with the guys that got you here. So, can you get to a playoff? Can you get to a first round? And you're thinking Snuggerud and Dvorsky potentially would automatically be in the lineup. And what Jim Montgomery said there this morning was that you go with the guys that got you here. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
This is going to sound super rude by me, and I apologize if it does. I'm trying not to be Tony with it, but are you a little surprised that they decided to keep Texier in? Because he basically was a healthy scratch prior to him getting back into the lineup with all of these injuries since all the way back in February.
Yeah, a little bit. I know Texier's had his ups and downs. It's amazing when he does something. It's like, okay, there's some talent there, but then he goes through a stretch where he just doesn't look like a guy who can help you. He did have that net front the other night with the goal, on the pass from Robert Thomas, and I don't know that this is as much about rewarding him and keeping him in the lineup as it is they want to kind of take it slow with Dvorsky. And Jim Montgomery admitted, he said it was very tempting to keep Dvorsky in there. But there was a little side chat at the end of practice, Montgomery and Dvorsky, just kind of some teaching moments. And I think that they're going to continue to do that with him. I don't know how long he'll be up here, to be honest with you guys. If you get Buchnevich back, and we just said that he's feeling better, will they send Dvorsky back to Springfield? Not sure on that one. But I do see a situation where they just want to take it slow with Dvorsky. Put him in, give him his spots, give him a chance to succeed. And if he does well, like Jim said the other day, keep him in there.
Does it also make some sense, as we're talking to Jeremy Rutherford for just another minute or two here on BK and Ferrario, does it also make some sense that contractually you hold him out of a game or two here or there just to make sure he doesn't get to that 10-game threshold, JR?
Yeah, and, there's so many details with that 10 games. So, first of all, yes, he is on that 10-game threshold. If he does play in the 10 games this year, will count towards a year toward his entry-level contract. If he does not play in the 10, it will slide, so it effectively keeps him on that entry-level deal for another year. But if you look at the fine print in the CBA, it also does say that playoff games count towards that 10. So everybody can look at this situation and say that with Dvorsky that, okay, he doesn't play in the 10 games by the end of the regular season, yeah, but if he's a playoff player and he gets in and he goes over that threshold of 10, then this will count as a year. But I got to believe that if the Blues are looking at it that way, they see themselves getting in the playoffs, and that means if he's in the lineup, he's having success, then that's not as big of a deal that this year counted towards the entry-level deal.
And just to clarify, Jared, that's 10 NHL games, not 10 AHL and NHL games.
Yeah, 10 NHL games.
And this also doesn't apply to Jimmy Snuggerud, correct? When/if he signs his contract?
It does not, right, because he's 20 years old. This only applies to players in their 18 and 19 year of their career. Jimmy Snuggerud, 20 years old. Also, last year, even if Snuggerud would have signed last year after his sophomore year at University of Minnesota, there's a date on the calendar that says when they have to be a certain age. And Jimmy Snuggerud last year also, if he just played one game, which is the case again this year, if he plays just one game, actually 0 games, if you just sign the contract, so it's 0 games. But
wow,
you assume that if he signs, he's going to get into a game, right? But once he signs, so 0 game, 1 game, whatever, this year counts as a year towards his entry-level deal.
Is there a chance, JR, that they try and do like an AHL PTO contract to where they don't burn a year of that eligibility, or do you think Snuggerud's not even going to listen to that?
Well, I think it's multifaceted. Here's the thing. Guys, if they're going to be enticed to come out of school and sign with you, they want to play. So he's going to want to play. And, I think the Blues are going to offer that. They offered it to him last year. I don't know why they wouldn't do that again this year. And then also you got to look at it like if you can get the player in here and he can help you and you can have some success, then I don't think you're as worried about that. You'll cross that bridge later. Doug Armstrong has said on multiple occasions, hey, if these guys are putting up the numbers, we want to pay them. So I think if, obviously that wouldn't necessarily be the case with Snuggerud putting up big numbers at the end of this year. But if they're playing well, you're going to reward them and pay them sooner in their career, and that's just the part of doing business. But with Snuggerud, they play Thursday night against UMass. If they lose, then that story is going to become a big story in the ensuing hours after that game as to whether and when he's going to join the Blues.
Blues back in action tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. That starts at 7 right here on 101 ESPN. Alex will have your pregame coverage beginning at 6. Jeremy Rutherford will have all of his great work over at The Athletic, and you can follow him, as always, on Twitter at JP Rutherford. JR, appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll talk with you again soon.
All right, hopefully that was exciting enough for you there, BK. There.
It was great.
You always excite me, man. Don't ever listen to BK.
Couldn't have been any better. JR, appreciate the time as always.
I'll see you guys.
You got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on 101 ESPN. I could have phrased it better.
Why are you throwing him under the bus like that, man?
No, that's on me. I could have phrased that better. What I meant is, JR, at the beginning of the season, our conversations were great, but for very different reasons right now, our conversations are exciting.
Still kind of a dud of a backup, but
All right, let's try this again.
Just crashed
Take
into
3.
a wall.
JR,
Semi-truck.
at the beginning of the season, our conversations are great, but man, are they amazing right now because of the content that this team has given us.
Booyah!
Boom, that was better? Okay.
Yeah. Always go with option
better.
3, man. Always go with option 3.
I'll get there. All right. If you guys have missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. It's all presented by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is super easy to use, and it is free to download. And it is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. Guys, bet it or forget it. By the end of the season, Ivan Herrera is batting in your top 4.
Bet it. I think Nootbaar struggles at some point, which they'll probably try a Brendan Donovan up top, and then Herrera goes right in between Contreras and Arenado. So bet it.
I'll bet it because I think he's going to have a big year. I think then eventually you move him into that top 4 and you get rid of this left, right.
I was about to say, do you think they'll be cool at that point of going right?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
A top 5 really, of Newt, Contreras, Herrera, Arenado, and then either Burleson or Donovan, depending on who's playing better. It makes a lot of sense.
And
theoretically.
If Herrera is hitting and that's why he's been put up here, odds are he's hitting right-handed pitching.
Sure.
So you're not afraid of that right-handed lane that they would be terrified of. So, yeah, I think they would be willing to get away from it. And Ollie has shown, like, thinking back to 22, he had shown that he's willing to go if he's got, like, elite bats there. Remember when they had – because it was always Goldie – I think it was Goldie, Arenado, Pujols, or Goldie, Pujols, Arenado. Like, you weren't afraid of a right-handed flamethrower coming into the game with those 3.
I'm betting it as well. You guys know my affinity for Ivan Herrera. I think he's going to be one of your 3 best hitters, and you've got to bet that dude in the top 4.
You've got a lot of affinity for Cardinals players, man.
Well, I think
you love, Donovan you love, Herrera you love.
Good thing this show's never been high on the offense and then never reaches it.
It's more lust than love, if we're being honest.
Gross, man. You should get that.
Aspiring for what they could be, not what they necessarily are. I'm a fixa. If you know the saying.
No. No, I don't. I don't know if I want you to finish it right now.
Look it up. I can't.
I
Alex,
don't really
what do you got
want
for us
to.
today?
Bet it or forget it, guys. The Blues catch the Minnesota Wild.
I'll forget it.
I'll forget it. I think it's just too hard.
Guys. So Minnesota, first of all, has not scored more than they've scored more than 3 goals once in the month of March. They got shut out last night to the Dallas Stars. Can I read you their next 10 games?
I know you're going to, so please.
What a tone, but
that
okay.
was so... God, he even side-eyed me for the people that saw it on YouTube. That deserved a Chris Rock slap across the face. Will Smith, not Chris Rock. The Golden Knights, the Washington Capitals, back-to-back against the New Jersey Devils.
Who are imploding.
They are imploding. Yes, they are. Couldn't even freaking hold on to a lead last night against the Canucks. The Rangers, the Islanders, the Stars.
Man, that is brutal.
And they've got 2 sets of back-to-backs. And you're 4 points behind them.
Down the stretch as well.
Yeah, they're 4 points behind them, and they've only got 1 game in hand.
4.
Aren't they getting Kaprizov back soon?
Right now, it's unknown. I don't think he's skating with the team.
That's kind of alarming.
I don't think you're catching them. You right now are 4 points back. They have an extra game. This is no shot against the Blues. It's just a really tall task to make up what is effectively potentially 5 to 6 points in the final 10 games of the regular season. Yeah. You have to be 4 games better than the Minnesota Wild. Like, they would have to win 2 games and you win 6. That kind of a thing. It's a lot.
Yeah, and as we've seen, like, for how great the Blues are playing right now, they still haven't even put away the 3 teams chasing them. Utah, I would say, probably out of it now. But like Calgary, Vancouver, they're still hanging around, and the Blues have been way better than them since the start of the 4 Nations break.
What do you got for us, T1? I'm assuming you believe it, right? You're betting.
Just move on, Tone Ranger.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Wills Contreras will hit 30 home runs and drive in 100 RBIs.
Bet it. He's never done it before, but I'm still going to bet this.
And this is going to sound weird. Am I crazy if I'm actually more hesitant on the RBIs than I am on the home runs?
Because nobody gets on base with this team?
I don't think so.
I just don't know if that's necessarily the profile. So I'll say forget it because I've got both outs, but I will also add I've got more hesitance on the RBIs. Than
you lust after everybody on this team, and now you're worried about outs?
Well, for example, in 2019, he ended up with 24 home runs and 64 RBIs.
How many games did he play?
105, which means that the home runs is there. Like, he could be a 30 home run hitter. And that's in his range of outcomes.
And that's why I would say bet it, because I think he's going to get 30 to 35 more games now that he's at first base and getting the DH opportunities.
Yeah, that's my hesitancy there. But I think people sleep on just how good of a hitter Wilson Contreras has been in his career. He's a really freaking productive player,
and if the bottom of your order is as good as I think it's going to be with Victor Scott, Masyn Winn, and then if
you're back.
Yeah. What?
You're in.
Well, suddenly, no, I'm not back.
Suddenly, Alex, I'm still this team is
Big Tuna. I'm still out. This is a 100-loss team, but
We got him.
Somebody turn that into a GIF for me.
Here we go.
that's a largemouth bass right there,
Yeah.
or a swordfish, whichever one you want to go off of.
Toucan.
Yeah, that's a bird, man.
I know.
Yeah, what do you?
The swordfish was the nose joke.
That was good.
I would say lean towards Bennett. I think he's going to have a massive year. 100 RBIs is the part that I'm a little skeptical of, but I think Contreras is going to just be a beast. I could see 35 homers, 90 RBIs in that 2 spot.
Let's go, boys.
Oh,
We're
the rest,
back.
I don't know how the I don't know the RBIs is a fair question because I don't know who else is getting
Look,
hits in front of him. But
the one guy that I've been steadfast on is I think Wilson Contreras is going to be awesome.
true.
I'm excited about Victor Scott and Masyn Winn. That's about it.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, Bet It or Forget It, the Cardinals will be in first place for at least 2 weeks in the month of April. I'm assuming in the division.
Are you one of those people that say they're already in first place right now? Because
Yeah.
I've seen a ton of
Cubs
people
are
be
in
like,
last.
"Oh, Cardinals, they're tied for first place."
Cubs are in
Are
last
you going to
technically.
disagree with that?
Yeah, I am. It's a
fact.
tie. It's a tie, and ties don't matter.
No, somebody in our division's already played. They're
But
0-2.
everybody else is tied for first.
Yeah, everybody else
I
is
know,
tied.
but that's what makes it count now.
No, it
right?
doesn't. Everybody's tied.
I agree
man.
with you, but
Thank you.
Yeah, you know.
A tie equals
God,
first.
the Cardinals are going to win on Thursday, and I'm going to have to hear BK come in that Friday and be like, "Oh my gosh, the Cardinals are great. They're in first place."
don't let Yvonne Herrera hit another opening day home run. Don't let it happen.
Why? Because last
He's
time he
coming
got
for you,
benched.
Are you
Tyler
trying to
O'Neill.
BKO
Watch out,
you?
Tyler O'Neill.
You trying to BKO it?
I'm going to forget this. I don't think they'll be in first place for 2 weeks.
Same. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it. Bet It or Forget It. Dvorsky scores 20 goals before Walker hits 20 home runs at the big leagues.
Ooh, that's fun.
Oh.
I think Walker's going to hit 20.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to play the odds here and say, like, Walker could hit 20 this year. And, I mean, you're not going to see Dvorsky until October, consistently, I should say. And 20 goals, you're talking about January or February if he's red hot. So, yeah, I'll say Jordan Walker. So, forget it. Look at T-Bone over there.
I'll forget it,
calculating.
but I think this could be close.
This comes down to, you think Walker hits 20 this year or
Yeah,
not?
and I'm kind of skeptical he does. I mean, last year he hit I don't even know if he hit
get
10 between the majors and AAA.
It was a bad year.
Yeah.
Down season.
Yeah, very.
I feel like we say that a lot about Cardinals players.
You know what? Forget. I am going to bet this. I will take Dvorsky to score 20 goals next year before Walker gets to 20. I don't think he'll get 20 home runs this year.
Okay. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line from the 314. Bet It or Forget It. There will be at least 3 Cardinals that hit 20-plus homers this year. Bet it.
They only had, one last year?
This is the most random Cardinals season that we've been talking about. A guy with 30 home runs and 100 RBIs.
They had 2 last year. What was the number? 3?
Yeah, it's a low bar. They'll clear it.
Who's doing it?
I mean,
Contreras, we just said.
He just said Walker.
No, 2 years ago the team was terrible, right? They had 4.
No, I didn't say 2 years ago. I said last year.
I know, but I'm saying this is not a high bar to clear. It's not hard to have 3 20
Really?
home run
They
hitters.
made it hard last year.
Arenado will hit 20. He's not a good hitter anymore, but he'll hit 20.
He didn't get there last year.
He'll get there. Gorman will
He was
get there.
4 short last year.
Gorman might not play, but he'll get there for sure. I think Burleson, if Burleson gets the at-bats, he'll play. He might not play, but he'll get there.
Newpar, obviously.
I don't know.
If you take out Goldie, they had 1 last year.
I'm him and Han a little bit.
He's over here
forget.
going, I could see this one happening.
But you think
that
Contreras
one.
will get there?
I think Contreras.
Winn
I think
could get there.
I think it'll be Contreras, and that will be the only guy that gets
What
there.
about Winn?
No.
He had 15 last year. I think people underestimate
in
how
the
much
9
power he
hole
had.
this year.
Yeah, I don't think he
That's
gets to
not ideal.
20.
Herrera will get there.
No, I don't
No,
think so.
I don't
I
think
think he's
so.
more doubles than he is homers.
30.
What? For him?
give
Did
it
you mean
time.
doubles?
No, he's working his way into that.
Jeez.
God, this is going to be a
As I
sad
continue
season,
talking
Brandon.
about this, this is just 3 of us.
Yeah, obviously, our
I don't
mics
know.
are off.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The playing time with Burleson and Gorman kind of throws me off here because those are 2 guys that actually do profile to be potential 20 home run hitters, and they might just split the time in a way that neither of them gets there.
Okay, man, come on.
That's my concern.
Come on.
Yeah, I agree with that because Gorman last year hit 19 home runs for how bad
Yeah.
he was. So he can get there.
It's going to be worse this year when you're not even getting playing time when you're bad.
If Gorman played every day, just played every day, if he was on the trash ass White Sox, he played every day for them, he would hit 30 home runs next year or this year. Now, he may strike out 250 times. I'm not exaggerating. He might have 250 strikeouts over the course of the season, but he'd get you the volume numbers of 30-plus homers. I have zero hesitancy in that. It's just a matter of, like, is that a winning baseball player when you're hitting those homers, but also it comes with basically zero production in 40% of your at-bats, and that's the calculus you have.
I like the optimism, buddy. You're going to live longer.
Coming up in 15 minutes, T-Bone said he's got a good junk drawer story for us today, so we'll get into that coming up at 12:45. But next, what would it look like if Nolan Arenado did break out this upcoming year? There's at least one person nationally that still has some hope for him. We'll tell you about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they host the Montreal Canadiens. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 7 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And the Cardinals open up the season this Thursday when they host the Minnesota Twins. As 3:15 will be first pitch. Sonny Gray will be on the mound for St. Louis. Pablo Lopez will be on the mound for Minnesota. This Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CNLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So what would it look like if Nolan Arenado had a bounce-back season in 2025? I know none of us believe this is going to happen, but at least one guy nationally predicted as much earlier today over on The Athletic. That gentleman's name is Eno Saracen. We love him here on the show. He wrote the following. It wasn't a great offseason for Nolan Arenado. All that talk about where he'd play this upcoming season was probably exhausting enough just to see the trade talks fall apart while he was trying to get ready for spring training. But through it all, Arenado has seemingly been plugging away at getting back to his former version of himself. One way that he's shown some of that promise is how hard he has been swinging the bat. Here are some of the top 10 players who have at least 150 track pitches this spring and have added the most bat swing. Now, there's a graphic there that is difficult to describe over the radio, but basically 10 different players, Nolan Arenado's name is among them, that have increased literally the swing speed as they go through the zone. He then continued along. Arenado's swing is a little longer this spring, and he is swinging a little bit more and missing than he did previously, but it's still not a significant rate. That bat speed has allowed in the past people to project more power in the upcoming year. So he says he thinks it's possible that Nolan Arenado could get back to some version of his former self because he's swinging the bat faster through the zone, which could increase the amount of power that he shows this year. Alex, I think we're all probably a little skeptical of that possibility. I would say most of us are lower on Arenado at this point in his career. However, if I simply told you that Nolan Arenado in the upcoming season is basically what he was 2 years ago, where he finished with 25 homers and 90 RBIs and was 10-ish% above league average offensively, what does that do for the Cardinals this year? It's not back to MVP form. I don't think that's in there anymore. But if he's 10 to 20% above league average offensively and has an OPS around 800 this year, so he's a good player, a productive major leaguer again, what does that do for this Cardinals lineup, in your opinion?
Nothing. Adds a couple of wins that you probably didn't expect to get. I think for him to make an impact on the Cardinals this year, he's got to legit be a middle-of-the-order bat. So if I'm looking like you tell me it's a bounce-back season, I'm looking at 2021. I'm not going to, it's outlandish to say an MVP conversation for Nolan Arenado, but 34 home runs, 105 RBIs, 19 points above league average and OPS plus, that would be my bounce back.
I don't know that he has that in him. Because that's a real contributor.
And I agree with that, but you asked me what does it do for the Cardinals if you get 2 years ago. I mean, look, I know WAR is nothing, but he was good for 2.2 WAR. Like, I think it maybe adds 3 wins to your belt. I don't think it really changes the outlook of what this season's going to be, because to me, that's still not a middle-of-the-order bat.
Yeah, I think if he bounces back, it can get more towards that 30 home run power and the 20% above league average. And again, I'm with you. I don't think he gets there. But if he does in this situation, I think it takes a lot of pressure off those young guys, and I think it puts them in the playoff mix. I don't know if they would make the playoffs because I think they need one more bat. But the reason I say it takes a lot of pressure off those young guys is you only need one of them to hit then. And I think right now they need 2. I think they need one of Herrera, Burley, Nootbaar to stay healthy, or Walker to become middle of the order bats. They need 2 of those 4 guys to do it if Arenado's not bouncing back. And if he does, now it's just 1. And I think Herrera can do it. We're both, me and BK, we're all high on Herrera on this show. Yep. So if he does it, also now you are in the playoff mix. So I think if you can get an Arenado bounce back, I'm not saying they're a 90-win team. They can kind of fight for this division, because I don't know if anybody's really great in this division. The Cubs aren't anything that's spectacular. I think a bounce back puts them in the playoff mix.
How do you feel about Braden Shinn's season, Alex?
I think it's par for the course. I think it's doing what he's done the last couple of years.
Oh, you think?
I think it's a bounce back year.
Huge bounce back.
Yeah. I don't think he was good the last 2 years.
I would say he's been so much better this year than he was the last couple of seasons. The numbers aren't all that dissimilar.
I think this is what he did last year, though. I think last year he was bad in the first half, and then he got hot towards the end of it and then came on for you.
I personally, just my viewpoint on it, and we can have differing opinions on it. I didn't think that Braden Shin was very good over the last couple of seasons. And I think a lot of that had to do with the injuries. I just don't think he was healthy. And this year you're seeing a healthy version of Braden Shin, and he looks a hell of a lot better. The reason I bring him up is because I think that Nolan Arenado has the potential to be that for the Cardinals. Where if he does bounce back, and especially in those clutch moments where he's up to the plate, you got runners in scoring position where he has not been good in recent seasons, or especially last year. If he can go up there and just hit for a little bit of power. The Cardinals were the worst team in the league with runners in scoring position hitting for power last year. If he can get back to that, even if it's doubles, forget the home runs for a second, just some doubles in those spots, that would be huge for this team. So if you can get, if it's the same numbers for Arenado, but they come in bigger moments this season, it totally, to me, changes the outlook for this team. And I think that's kind of where Braden Shin is. The numbers aren't all that dissimilar from what it's been in previous years, but he feels like he's elevating those around him this season. And that would be, in my opinion, Arenado's equivalent of that is elevating those around him by coming through in those big moments. That's what he can open up for everybody else. Shin takes some of the responsibility off of younger players in the Blues lineup. He makes it easier for Holloway and Kyrou to just go out there and play. Be yourselves. Go out there and get in transition. Yeah, I'm probably going to be dragging up the rear as you guys are flying down the ice, but he's a hell of a centerman, and he gets everybody into the right spots. So, to me, that's what Arenado you're hoping he can be for the Cardinals in this upcoming
I think it's
season.
a great comp by you. My only pushback would be Shen's been the injury, and I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Arenado wasn't injured last year. 2 years ago he was, wasn't he?
I think last year he had something. I can't remember.
I thought the shoulder was 2 years ago, but I could be wrong on that. Like, I don't think injuries impacted Nolan Arenado last year. I think age impacted Nolan Arenado last year.
Fair.
And Braden Shen, if you're going, like, again, I feel like the last couple of years have been kind of what Shen's been this year, to where it started off slow. He got better as of late. But, I mean, he is healthy now, and that's where you're seeing the impact that he comes into play with.
I would also add this. There was, and somebody on the text line brought this up. Thanks, Dad, said, Shin had a new role to fill. He became the only enforcer, showed up a lot of places other than just the score sheet. I would also add to that new role is the captain. And there are new responsibilities, and there are new pressures that come along with that. And it can wear on you as a player until you figure out, okay, what does this look like for me? How do I fill all these new responsibilities while also maintaining what I used to be as a player on the ice? And I do wonder with Arenado, we'll see on this. This is a very much, again, I'm skeptical. At the end of last year, you remember how he started to kind of feel like one of the guys again? Like, he posted that stuff on Instagram, and it's one thing. Again, it's a small moment, but he posted that thing on Instagram late at night where he's just sitting at the table with Masyn, Winn. I can't remember who else was there.
Wasn't it Burleson?
And some of the young guys. Newtbar was there as well. And it was like he just felt as though he was just letting the chips fall. And just being like, you know what? I'm just going to go out there and play. If he can follow that again this year and he becomes more just a part of the guys and he allows the other players to take on the added responsibilities, maybe that is something that helps his game on the field as well. Again, I'm skeptical of all of this, but if you're trying to piece together and reverse engineer what a good Nolan Arenado season looks like, it probably includes all of those things that we just discussed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And not only does he help you out offensively for this team, defensively too. I mean, and I think he was good last year defensively, but it wasn't at the elite level that we had seen in the 2 years prior to that. And I think that's another thing for a bounce back for him is, can he get back to being that elite Gold Glove defensive caliber third baseman? And if he is on top of the offense, now you're really talking about a potential lineup that could really rake.
And that was the thing that slipped last year a little bit, was the defense. The last 2 years.
Was it last year the arm? There was something on the arm?
I think that's right.
I thought that was 2 years ago.
I think
this dude's hurt all the time. Man, no wonder why we want to trade him.
Makes sense.
Yeah, last year he just wasn't the same dude defensively. And 2 years ago it felt as though he had slipped and it might not come back. But last year he was okay. He was okay. And I think the second half is when he started to get a little bit better. The first half of the season was when he had his struggles. It all starts to run together for me in my mind at this point. But
yeah, it'll be better this year.
Hopefully. Speaking of that, you guys worried at all about Sonny Gray?
Yeah.
Yes.
He has like a sickness now?
Sure he does. Reaction to
That's what
the reaction to the injection that he got for his arm injury.
Yeah, in September.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while to fester in your body.
So his velo's been down. He tried to explain it by saying, hey, He got that injection late at the end of last season, ended up going on the IL for the rest of the year, and then it pushed back his throwing program, which meant that he wasn't all the way ready to go in spring. He did some of the backfield stuff, blah, blah, blah. And now the velo is just not quite all the way there. And it's like, okay. And he said in his final spring training outing, he kind of figured out how to pitch this way because I don't have my fastball velo, so I've got to throw my other stuff and try to find ways to get guys out that way. Okay, I remember hearing that with Waino, and it didn't go super well.
Does this sound reassuring to anybody?
And then the Cardinals come out yesterday and say, hey, Sonny's been dealing with an illness. And that's part of why he hasn't been totally himself. It's like, okay, but this was all spring. This wasn't something that just randomly appeared for the past week. This was a 6-week stretch where he didn't have his best stuff. So am I supposed to believe that he's been sick since February? And if so, can somebody get this guy an IV? Like, what's going on? Why is he still sick 6 weeks later?
Hearing Mo's availability yesterday, the audio of it, and they asked him, and he was like,
sick. Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. It was like a 5-second before he responded, and it's like he was trying to think of the outs you could come up with this one.
I also did love Waino, when he dealt with the velo issues, he learned to pitch around that. Okay, yeah, he did for a year, and then we all remember his final ride.
That was me saying that, not them, to be clear. I'm saying that Waino was saying those same things, and then it was a disaster.
Yeah, yes, I know. And when Mo used that as his reference point of, oh, look, Waino learned to pitch when he lost the velo. Yeah, he said, Waino lost his velo, and he learned to pitch. Now, he was referring to...
He said that yesterday?
Yeah.
I missed this quote.
Yeah, 22 when he was good, when his velo wasn't there. But he did not, that was the year. He mentioned he didn't bring up the 23 year where his velo really dipped down into the mid-80s because he was saying, hey, well, look, Waino had success when he threw 89. Okay, but I don't know if I would kind of use that as
Waino was also like a 16-year vet at the time.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use that as our launching off point here, right? And Gray's profile is Waino was never a high-profile, like, strikeout guy like Sonny Gray.
Meanwhile, Sonny is.
Yeah, so, like, it would be a massive change for Sonny Gray to pivot away from that.
So what you're telling me is Sonny Gray wasn't ready for spring training, so didn't have a normal spring training, struggled in his last 4 starts that typically are supposed to get you ready for the regular season.
Correct.
And you're asking if I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I think
do you have an answer?
I think it's self-explanatory, buddy.
I think before opening
Alex
day,
is saying everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think
I'm
before
lusting
opening
for
day,
everything to be fine.
Ollie should go to Rocco Baldelli, the Twins manager. Go. Is it cool if we continue that whole like spring thing, or if we have to pull him from an inning, we can
put him back out
bring him back out
Good
there
news
for
is
like
it won't
the
be
fourth.
super hot out Thursday.
No, that's true. Coming up next, Juncture here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends out at Ted Drew's, that famous frozen custard just off of Chippewa. You need to put it on the schedule tonight to get out there and enjoy some famous frozen custard. It's beautiful outside. It's nice weather. This is the time of year where you start to just get out of the house and go down, sit in your car, and enjoy whatever flavor you want to mix and match with out at Ted Drew's. It's been a St. Louis staple since 1929. 4 generations of families have been running that business that has been built on quality and that represents St. Louis. And you can go out there and you see the hundreds of people that are in the parking lot waiting for it, mixing and matching. Heck, you can buy it in bulk now. Bring it home with you, put it in the freezer, and have Ted Drew's whenever you want it. It's about building those traditions with families and friends. That's what Ted Drew's has been built on for the last since 1929. You can go out there while you're there, check the gift shop, which is across the parking lot, where you can check out Ted Drew's souvenirs. You can find Ted Drew's apparel. You can also purchase Ted Drew's gift cards. So get on out there tonight. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. Coming up here in about 10 minutes, we're going to talk to Tyson Nash. He's a part of the Puck Cancer event. He's going to join us to discuss that here in about 10 minutes. But T-Bone, you've got a junk drawer story for us today. What do you got for my friend?
Guys, I'm here to improve the studio, okay? Get us some stuff for our background. Because I saw today...
We have shelves?
We can get some.
Is it a map of the United States?
No, that would be cool.
Going to forfeit that from your apartment?
So I saw today that apparently they are getting ready to start a Hollywood auction, which is you can buy some props from some movies.
Oh, this is going to get expensive.
So, we're going to need the company card for this one. But I saw a couple of these, and I was like, okay, we should get this. Like the Jurassic Park license plate that's on the back of the truck in the first movie.
Okay.
We
that's
can get
cool,
that.
but that's not that cool.
I know, but
you need to
like
one-up
right
it.
over my shoulder.
You need to one-up that.
I think it would look great. How about we could get Dumbledore's robe to wear from Harry Potter?
I like Harry Potter, but I don't really
putting
care.
it in a shadow box?
Yeah, why not?
No, D-Phone will wear it the entire show.
I will do that.
You like jackets, so we could get you Ron Burgundy's navy suit from Anchorman.
I would be all in on that. I don't think it would fit me. Will Ferrell's like 6 foot.
We can get Hellboy's Right Hand of Doom.
I don't care about it. Hellboy was a terrible movie. That might be a hot take, but it was a terrible movie.
Put that up behind us. How about
these are all bad so far.
I know. I'm surprised. I thought there'd be a little bit more love for some of these. The Power Loader Claw from Aliens. Anybody?
That's pretty cool.
What is One-Eyed Willie's Treasure from the Goonies? That one I don't know.
Oh,
you didn't watch the Goonies?
I've seen the Goonies. I don't know if I remember that, though.
Okay.
What's
the next one?
It's the treasure.
There's a couple in here that you guys probably wouldn't want, but it'd be
Do we have
something
any sports memorabilia? This is a sports show, T-Bone.
These are all I was just looking for cool stuff. Oh, here's a sports one actually. The Jackie Robinson jersey that Chadwick Boseman, is that how you say him? Yeah. Wore in the movie 42.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
That's a good one.
That's what I would drop some dough on.
Something that our audience would specifically enjoy.
Talk sports.
How about the mask that Michael Fassbender wore in the movie 300 that's got the fake blood on it?
That I would be interested in.
It's a Spartan. Okay. What do you think of that?
Oh, but you were really reaching at straws there.
I thought that was good. Yeah.
It was a blood sport.
It was a good sport back then.
They also got a shield from that movie that we could get that's got like little fake holes from where arrows hit it. Like, how cool is that? Now, granted, like the helmet, the current bid's $5,000, so like
that's
we're gonna need a. Yeah, but they're expecting it could get up to 8,000.
Man, I would have thought that's going for more
price.
The most expensive one that they've got on here right now is two that are from Star Wars. The medal that is awarded at the end of A New Hope, the medal ceremony. Yeah, if you haven't watched a movie from the 70s or whatever it was, then we've got bigger problems.
I don't think that was the 70s.
Also, this one would be cool, and like I don't know if I could convince. Is it a sport one? But the blaster that Chewbacca has, that's up for auction, which would be awesome.
That would be pretty sick.
Now, granted, we're going to need to borrow up to about $500,000.
$500,000.
Yeah, right now the bid's $125,000. They're saying the estimate is it could get up to $500,000.
I think the one memorabilia that I saw that I've always wanted, it was Stallone was doing this like 5 years ago. I think it was during COVID. He was auctioning off the American boxing trunks that he wore against against Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV. It was going for like $250,000, and I wished I was a millionaire at that moment.
We can also get Michael Keaton's Batman suit from Batman Returns in 1992.
That one was with the pokey.
I think that's the nipple one.
Yeah. Didn't want to go there, but that's all right.
The nipple one?
Yeah, it's the suit that actually had the nipples.
Yeah, they showed it, which was
I was like, what do we do?
We've also got Superman from Superman 3. His is available, too, if you want that.
Superman has the worst movies.
Yeah, I was going to say Superman 3. I didn't even know there were 3 Superman.
Fair. I think that's fair. There's a couple Star Trek items that are up.
Or Superman or Hulk.
Hulk's rough, man.
Superman, by the way.
Hulk is a good superhero. He just doesn't have good movies.
Hulk, they at least had one good one. It was the Edward Norton one. Superman, there were none of them that were good.
Who's the worst superhero that has good movies?
The worst superhero that has good movies. Oh, that's Batman.
What?
Yeah, he's just
he's a rich dude that has gadgets. Complex. He has no superpowers. He's not even a Superman.
But great movies.
Great movies, phenomenal movies. I wish I was him, but
Alex is right on this.
Yeah. He's the worst superhero out of all of them, and I've had this argument with my 5-year-old nephew.
No, he's correct.
It's the worst Spider. It's the worst Superman.
Ant-Man might also be up there.
Let's just say Ant-Man.
Yeah, but at least Ant-Man's got a pretty cool suit that like makes him big and small.
No, that's fair.
Batman can't even fly. He can glide.
We can get Batman's utility belt that Adam West wore.
To be fair, Iron Man is basically just Batman.
Yeah.
True.
Just a rich guy with a god.
Yeah, but his has blaster guns on it.
Yeah. I mean, so do some of the vehicles that Batman uses.
Batman is the worst.
I would get the utility belt and wear that.
From Adam West?
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
From the 60s.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, we've got an update on opening day at Busch Stadium, the scheduled events if you're heading out there on opening day. 10:30 to 1 o'clock is the opening day pep rally over at Ballpark Village. Don't forget to stop by. We will be broadcasting live on opening day at Ballpark Village as well. So come on out, say hello. Check us out over there as you're going to the pep rally. At noon, the gates will open to Busch Stadium. That is when batting practice will begin. They'll go at 12:05 to 12:55 for Cardinals BP. At 1 o'clock is when the Twins will be taking batting practice, and then the pregame ceremonies with the Clydesdales, they begin at 2:30 on Thursday. So be sure to get into your seat. 2:30 on Thursday for the pregame ceremonies. National anthem at 3:05. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, Tyson Nash joins us to talk about his experience with puck cancer, the event that's coming up. We'll talk to Tyson Nash about that and a little bit on the Blues coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. It is time to unlock your inner champion, and the place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, and you can check them out today. Super easy process. Go to their website at victorymenshealth.com. They are located in O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and the location that I typically go to, that's in Town and Country, Missouri as well. Super easy process on their website. Book that first appointment. Go to the top right corner of the page. Click Book Now. Name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them what it is that you're looking for to unlock your inner champion. And that means different things for different people. For some, it means low testosterone symptoms. Maybe you're not feeling like you have the same energy that you once did. You're not getting the same amount of oomph out of your workouts. Whatever that may be, they can test for that testosterone level for you over at Victory Men's Health. Erectile dysfunction issues, weight loss goals that you're trying to meet, red light therapy programs that you're interested in, or if you want to find out about their cardiovascular testing, it's all available at Victory Men's Health and online today at victorymenshealth.com. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, former Blues forward. He's Tyson Nash joining us here on the show. And Tyson is on with us to help direct some of you over to the Puck Cancer event. This is the second annual event, the Puck Cancer Game. It's coming up on Friday, April 4th. Tyson, we appreciate you joining us today and certainly doing so on behalf of such an outstanding event. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing unbelievable and obviously happy to talk all things Puck Cancer, all things Blues. I miss that city. I miss the great fans. Some of the best times of my life, certainly. And obviously, I would do literally anything for Kelly Chase, one of the best teammates I've ever played with, one of the best humans on the planet. So anything I can do to help. We're also looking for sponsors out there, everyone listening in St. Louis. We want to raise a boatload of money at this event. So any sponsors, please reach out.
Last year was such a cool event. By the way, Tyson, to this day, I still see number 9 Tyson Nash jerseys just floating around Enterprise Center. So you're just as loved here in St. Louis. So the one thing I always love talking with guys about when they bring up Kelly Chase is what those phone calls are like. Because obviously when you're putting these events together, Tyson, you know, this isn't a PR firm that's calling you. This is Kelly Chase getting on the phone saying, Nasher, we've got a game. I need you. What are those calls like?
And that's exactly what it is. Like, this guy was a bully on the ice. He's a bully off the ice, which I absolutely love. I actually just got off the phone with my daughter who works for the St. Louis Blues alumni, and she's in charge of helping with this event. And literally, she's like, I just got off the phone with Kelly. He wants me. He just asked me, I need 20,000 in sponsors by the end of the week. And she's just like, oh, my God. Like, how do you say no to Kelly Chase, right? And obviously, us as players, we jump at it. He has done so much for so many in the game for each of us at one point or another, whether it's protecting me on the ice, which he did with regularity. I think I kept him employed for a couple extra years. But he's just done so much. I don't know another person who has raised more money for charities and for incredible causes than Kelly Chase. So it's time for us to get together and return the favor. And again, that's why I'm on this phone call. That's why I have no issue, reaching out to whoever it is for sponsorship to raise money for this great cause.
And Tyson, if people want to contribute on their own, they can do so over at the St. Louis Blues alumni website, stlbluesalumni.com. You just scroll down there, and it's super easy. It just says contribute now. Click that button. You can contribute whatever it is that you feel comfortable in doing. If people are listening right now and they have a business that may be interested in becoming one of those sponsors, how do they go about that, Tyson? How can they get in touch with, whether it's your daughter, Kelly Chase? What do they need to do? What's that process look like?
Well, I guess without giving out a phone number or something, I would say my daughter is heavily involved in the Blues Instagram account, the Blues alumni, I should say, Instagram account. That's where I would try to contact. Over there? Yeah, send a message. Tell them you're looking for Maddie Nash. That's my daughter. She is doing an unbelievable job, and obviously, again, right? It's for an unbelievable cause. You guys were at the event last year. You know how incredible it was, and I mean, we just need to raise money and a lot of it.
Yeah, and the alumni website is another way that you could do it as well. It's stlbluesalumni.com, where they have a contribution. They've got the alumni office number on there, so you can head to stlbluesalumni.com to get involved like Tyson Nash is calling for. Tyson, you played in this last year. What was this event like when you get on the ice and you see all of these, I guess I could say it in air quotes, old-timers, as they like to call themselves, but sometimes there's some sick skills taking place at Centene.
Yeah, and you know what? Sadly, I wasn't able to be a part of that last year. I was working a full-time job with the Arizona Coyotes. We had a couple games at that exact time, so unfortunately, I wasn't there. But there was nothing stopping me this year from being there and being a part of it. Just again, seeing what Kelly Chase has gone through the last few years, what he's going through currently. The guy is just battling every single day, and this us showing up, is just a testament to who Kelly Chase is as a human being, because we're all there for him. And yeah, I mean, the players are still super talented, right? You look at the rosters, I mean, they're ridiculous. I haven't skated in, I think, 2 years. So please don't expect a ton out of me, at least. I never had great hands, but I will be all smiles. I cannot wait. I think I'm sitting next to Dirk Bentley in the locker room. So I cannot wait. I am so fired up.
Hey, Tyson, one more on this event and just Kelly Chase in general. What has this been like for you and the other Blues alumni and NHL alumni seeing this cancer battle that Chaser's been going through?
It's gut-wrenching, and it started a number of years ago. I'll never forget, every single day in the summer, I was training the kids early in the morning, and I would literally see Kelly get into his truck and have to drive 45 minutes into Spokane, Washington, and do his radiation treatments. And I'm talking every single day for 2 months straight. And, we're all leaving, we're all having breakfast, and he's coming back from radiation. And, obviously it's snowballed from there. It's been an up and down battle. He's currently in the hospital right now, just kind of battling and grinding right now and trying to get healthy and trying to get re-energized so that he can take part in the event. And it's gut-wrenching to see one of your best friends and the family and everything that's done and the toll it's taken on his body and, just mentally and physically and on everybody who loves this guy, right? I mean, he has loved more than any human being I've ever seen, because he's given out so much love, and you reap what you sow, and Kelly Chase is an example of exactly that. So it's been a battle. Again, I hope everyone can dig deep in their pockets for this one and donate any way you can, big or small, it doesn't matter. But we, again, are looking for sponsorships, all the businesses out there. Just think of number 39, right? And all he's done for that great city.
The Blues are hosting the second annual Puck Cancer event. Blues alumni hosting the second annual Puck Cancer event. It is coming up on Friday, April 4th at 7 o'clock. That will take place at the Centene Community Ice Center, which is an unbelievable venue to go watch this game at. If you want to check out the tickets, you can do so on the St. Louis Blues alumni website. You can also check them out on Ticketmaster. Just search Puck Cancer. All those are available over there. If you want to get involved, whether it's via contributing on your own or with your business, again, you can find all of that information right now at stlbluesalumni.com. It's going to be an unbelievable evening. I've just got a few names that I'll go ahead and read here that are involved with it. It's an unbelievable list. Shaddy, Steen, Otter, Monty, Scotty Upshaw, Pal Stasny, Chris Butler, Cam Jansen, Tyson Nash, who we're talking with right now, Scott Young. There's celebrities that are going to be a part of this. I think John Elway is one of the coaches that's involved with this. Like they brought out everybody that could possibly be a part of a game like this. It's going to be a ton of fun. If you're a Blues fan, you'll see a bunch of flashes from the past that are going across the ice. So it'll be a lot of fun out there. Check it out today if you haven't done so already. stlbluesalumni.com. All right, Tyson, before we get you out of here, I do want to ask you one quick question about the Blues, because this is an unbelievable ride that we've been on the last 6 weeks or so as they're going on this chase for the potential playoff push. What has been your perspective on this? We're in it every day. What have you been looking at as you see what the Blues are doing right now?
Well, we shouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, this is kind of the story when they won the Stanley Cup a few years ago. It's a lot the same, right? And this team has come from the ashes, the goaltending. I mean, Binnington, I was irate because I'm a huge Canadian supporter, Canadian hockey. I wanted them to win the Four Nations. And I'm like, this is the best we got. This guy's record in Binnington is like 13, 15, and 3. That's all Canada can come up with. The guy's struggling. He's been terrible for the Blues, and we're going to put him in for the Four Nations? Well, talk about eating crow, right? I'm talking about eating my words, because this guy is a big game player. We saw it when they won the Cup. We're seeing it again this year. And as long as he keeps kicking, I mean, this team – and the sad part for me is I work for Utah. So we're just like, what is going on in St. Louis? Can these guys slow down anytime soon? I mean, as good as Utah's playing, St. Louis is just running the table.
Tyson, you've been covering the league for a long time as a broadcaster with Arizona, and now I know you're an analyst with Utah Hockey Club. You've seen the success that Jim Montgomery has had in the NHL as a coach with Dallas and then Boston. Should it surprise people of what Jim Montgomery has done in terms of turning this Blues roster around?
No, and you got to give Armstrong a ton of credit, right? Just for pulling the lever at the right time. As good as Berube was, and you have an opportunity to bring in Montgomery. I mean, this guy is an absolute stud. He really is. He pushes all the right buttons clearly, and that's your leadership, right? It starts with ownership, your general manager, your assistant general manager, and then your coach. And it feeds into the locker room. It feeds into what they're trying to create and cultivate. As far as the foundation and the culture goes there. And the alumni is the other thing, right? And it goes all the way back to Kelly Chase. The alumni is so important because it really kind of sets the tone for the team. The team and the players can't get away with anything that isn't Blues related or culture because they're going to get called to the mat because of the alumni, right? And it's so important, but again, I'm excited to see what they can do. Hopefully they slow down a little bit and allow Utah maybe to sneak in, but I don't see it happening.
Tyson, since you brought that up, let me ask you just big picture before we let you go. When you look at the state of this wild card race right now with St. Louis, Vancouver, Calgary, and Utah, but specifically the Central Division, you got to start wondering what this is going to look like 3 to 5 years from now with the youth of Utah, the youth of St. Louis, the youth of Minnesota. It seems like this is going to be back to being one of the more dominant divisions in the next couple of years.
Oh, that's such a great point. We actually were talking with Bill Armstrong about this. I think he was the assistant general manager when they won the Cup with the Blues. And he was like, every year it's getting tougher, and it is going to get tougher because now Utah is out of their rebuild, right? So they're no longer in rebuild mode, and it's about time. I mean, because no one wants to rebuild as a player, right? So now you got Anaheim that's coming out of their rebuild. You got San Jose that's coming out of their rebuild. Chicago is really the only team that's kind of just sputtering still. But now, there's no easy games in the National Hockey League. And every team now is going to be that much more competitive next year and the years after. And that ain't slowing down anytime soon. The league is in such a healthy position. And I think Gary Bettman deserves a ton of credit. I know we were, as players, told to hate this guy, but this guy, he's the most brilliant guy on the planet. Look at how much money these guys are making. Look at the pensions they have now. Just everything right now is healthy for the owners and the players.
Tyson Nash, one of the best dudes that we get to catch up with here on BK and Ferrario. He's, again, joining us on behalf of the Puck Cancer event, so be sure to check out the details on that. Tyson, great to catch up, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. We'll talk with you again soon. Enjoy the event next weekend.
You bet, guys. I appreciate it, as always. Again, need the money. Sponsors out there. Maddie Nash. I don't want Chaser to yell at her anymore. So help her out.
That's awesome. Tyson, you're the best, man. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
There you go.
That's Tyson Nash. Appreciate his time, as always, joining us here on BK and Ferrari.
That game last year raised $600,000 for cancer research. And for people that need to know, all the proceeds benefit Siteman Cancer Center and the V Foundation for Cancer Research. So all of this is going to stop cancer, support cancer research. And a lot of people might think this is going to Kelly Chase. This is not. This is going to stop cancer and the research that goes into it. But yeah, they raised $600,000 last year. And so they're trying to one-up that right now. It's $50 for general admission, BK, and there's $500 VIP tickets, which give you all-inclusive food and beverage, and you're going to the post-game party with the players and celebrities. So every name that you mentioned, you're going to that post-game party after the game on that Friday.
It'll be an awesome event. If you have an opportunity, if you have some time to go out there, it's worth it. Go out there, support, raise money for cancer research. Well worth your time. Again, that's April 4th, next Friday night, for the Puck Cancer event. Alex, you said something there at the end that I wanted to get to coming up next because you kind of sparked an interest for me.
Ooh.
You look at this Blues division, and the Central Division is difficult right now and only getting tougher, seemingly, in the next few years. How do the Blues fit into that? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, the company that I only trust with my HVAC system, the company you need to use if you've got an older unit or maybe a younger unit that you just want to be able to last however long you're living in your home. And I talk so much about the maintenance agreement with Classic Air Care. I talk about the knowledgeable technicians, the customer service we get, but this is the real part. If your AC goes down, the technicians that are coming out, they're not guys that just got into the business. These are techs that have been working with over 40 years of experience. Plus, they've got nearly 100 vans that are out there on the road, which allow Classic Air Care to get to the service customers the same day really regularly, which is so important. When it goes down and it's 100-something degrees outside, you call Classic Air Care, they're able to get out there. That's the commitment they're making to their customers to stay comfortable. There's nothing worse than that St. Louis summer without the AC. So give them a call today. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Schedule them to come out. Just do a consultation. Check out the unit. Sign up for the maintenance agreement and get with the company that has been making people comfortable since 1926. Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So Alex said something that I found to be pretty interesting at the end of that conversation with Tyson Nash. He mentioned, hey, this Central Division, you look at it, it's not just set up for the here and now. You look the next 3 to 5 years, this should be an extremely competitive division. Alex, how do you view the Blues in relation to these other teams? Jets, Stars, Avs, Wild, Utah all think they're in their winning window right now as well. Nashville thought they were in their winning window. We'll see what happens there if there's a potential for a bounce back. How do you see the Blues relative to these teams right now?
I put the Blues in the same category as Utah and Minnesota, to where their window is opening. And I think it's crossing paths at the perfect time with teams like the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche. Because, and I know this is going to sound insane, because they still have Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, but at some point, Colorado's going to take a little bit of a dip because all of their guys aren't as young. You're going to move on. A lot of guys get bigger contracts. You already saw a move on from Mikko Rantanen. The Winnipeg Jets, they're defying odds right now, but still finding ways to win. And the Dallas Stars are fairly young. But when I look at the Central Division, compared to any other division right now in the National Hockey League, I look at the pipeline and what they have at the NHL roster. The Blues have a mass core that are sitting somewhere between 23 and 25 years old. These are guys that already have 5+ years of experience in the NHL, like Thomas and Kyrou. You have some vets, but the vets are like 31 years old and Colton Parayko, who's just hitting their prime. Minnesota's probably the closest to the Blues, and they have a lot of cap money coming their direction, which is why I kind of look at Minnesota as they're going to be a top dog. Sure. Utah has spent so many draft picks, and now they're starting to actually spend money on NHL players. I think they're going to be coming into this competitive window soon. This feels a lot like what it was back in the mid-2010s when it was St. Louis, L.A., Chicago every single year. Nashville was in that one as well. I think in the next 3 years, you're going to have Blues, Wild, and Utah fighting for the top spot in the Central with Dallas and Colorado. And there's a realistic possibility that those 5 teams are fighting for top records in the National Hockey League.
One of the reasons I wanted to get to this is because of another thing that Tyson Nash said there, which was, hey, Gary Bettman deserves a lot of credit. There's some truth to that. Gary Bettman deserves a lot of credit for some of the things that have worked in the NHL. The other thing that Gary Bettman has said recently, though, is that the expansion's probably coming sooner rather than later. And what we're discussing here, 15 teams in the Western Conference, 16 teams, probably 12 of them think they're in their winning window. That's when you expand.
Yep.
That is when you expand, because that means that there is enough talent to be able to disperse across the league, and everybody feels as if they're kind of in it. When you have 3 or 4 teams in each conference that really feel like they have a chance that year, that is when you're like, oh, do we have enough talent to be able to continue to add teams to this league? The NHL, there are enough players that are coming both here in the U.S. and Canada, and certainly internationally, that we are able to provide the necessary talents to be able to expand. And I do wonder if that is something that gets this pushed even further sooner rather than later, because of the talent that's available right now in the league. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And then on top of it, you look at what the asking price Elliot Friedman reported on. Like, you're talking like $2 billion for an expansion, and that's just one of them. So imagine Bettman gets that, and then the other team comes in, and you're talking more than that. And now with the cap going up, and now you're adding more money to the pocketbooks of the owners and the teams that are divvied when the expansions come in, you're going to see this cap continue to rise, and you'll get to 34 teams. The playoffs will probably expand a little bit. You're right. Like, this is going to be a lot more open. And what I find so fascinating about the Central is it's always a dominant division. But, like, look over in the Pacific Division. There are a couple of teams, but Anaheim's nowhere near ready. Seattle's nowhere near ready. San Jose's nowhere near ready. Vancouver's going the opposite direction. LA's going the opposite direction. You're talking about 2 teams maybe that are in their winning window. And at some point, this whole Vegas thing is going to fall flat on its face. But then go into the Eastern Conference. Toronto's going to be on the other side of this. Tampa's going to be on the other side of this. There is not one division, in my opinion, that has found and did such a good job of kind of putting a competitive roster together now and starting to open up that competitive window without really being a disaster, because Dallas was never a disaster. Minnesota was never a disaster. Utah obviously was. Nashville is. Chicago is. But like St. Louis, Minnesota, Dallas, Winnipeg, really. Like, these teams were never picking first overall 5 out of 7 years. They were always finding ways to stay competitive and then rebuild on the fly.
All right, coming up next, I do want to get into our countdown of the 20 most important players for 2025. There's an extension that was just signed by a team in Major League Baseball that I wonder if you'd be willing to sign our number 4 player to at the end of this upcoming season,
T-Bone,
if he has another season similar to what he did a year ago. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Circus Sports in the state of Illinois. And Alex, we've got opening day coming up. We are just 2 days away.
Oh,
Sunny
baby.
Gray on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals, and it is basically an even split. Minus 106 for the Cardinals on the money line, and the over-under in this game is set at 7.5. I am going to take the Cardinals minus 106 and give me the over on 7.5 runs scored in this game. You parlay those two things together, you put it all together over on the Circus Sports app in the state of Illinois. You're going to win yourself a lot of money. A $100 bet wins you $289 on Circus Sports in Illinois.
All right, BK, I got a parlay for you in the Blues one tonight. I'm saying we are seeing the under 5.5 goals. I'm saying the Blues minus 1.5 and a Dylan Holloway goal. Those three together, $10 brings you in $180. This is why we use Circus Sports Illinois. You're getting the most money possible. So download the Circus Sports Illinois app today. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight. They host the Montreal Canadiens. Alex will have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock. And then the voice of the Blues will have puck drop Chris Kerber at 7 o'clock tonight here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals start the regular season on Thursday when they host the Minnesota Twins. 3:15 will be first pitch. Sunny Gray on the mound for St. Louis. Pablo Lopez gets the start for Minnesota. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for 2025 with number 4. If you're wondering, okay, so it's Tuesday. Opening day is on Thursday.
We did math.
We have 2 days remaining. Yeah, we were 1 day off. We'll do 2 for you tomorrow.
What
number
a joke.
4 on our
Why do we
list
always
is
do this?
Masyn Winn, because I just go by the week and then it's a whole thing. It's on me.
He
we have him at number
government
4.
holidays.
Tanner had him at number 9 on his list of the 20 most important
You're
Cardinals.
yelling at me for guys that are low.
9. Alex had him at number 3. I had Masyn Winn all the way up at number 2 on my most important Cardinals list heading into 2025. And here's the reason why. Shortstop, if you could lock down any position on the diamond, the most difficult one to do so is shortstop. And you look across Major League Baseball right now, dude. Basically, every contender in the league has a pretty damn good one right now. So if you don't, you're playing from behind. The Cardinals might have one in Masyn Winn. He was a really good player for them a year ago. Now, you look at the offensive numbers, and by the traditional metrics, pretty good. Had a good batting average, finished the year with 15 homers on the season. The volume stats all look pretty good. But then you look overall at the OPS plus, some of the advanced nerdy numbers. You look at his on-base percentage, for example. It was like league average, which is not bad when you have Gold Glove defense at the shortstop position, especially if you consider there might still be some untapped potential from a power perspective with Masyn Winn. I think there's still a little bit more to unlock there. I mentioned the nerdy numbers didn't necessarily love his offensive season. You know what they did love? His overall value. He was a 5-win player last season for the St. Louis Cardinals. 5 wins. That is really difficult to do, and it is something that the Cardinals have not had at that position in quite some time. So, Alex, as you look at the importance of Masyn Winn, whether it is for 2025 or beyond, how do you view him?
I view him as a pillar for this team moving forward. Now, he's not the home run pop time type of Albert Pujols pillar. He's more so an identity pillar, and it's why I put him so high up on this list, because I think what Masyn Winn is, what he embodies, is what the Cardinals are trying to encapsulate moving forward. The work ethic, the Gold Glove, the defense, the contact, the speed. It feels like the Cardinals are trying to resemble a lot of Masyn Winn. Victor Scott's a guy that's going to be a part of this conversation as well. And I also look at how he impacts this team moving forward, as he was probably one of the most clutch players for the team last year, and I think that's going going to carry over into this season. Is he going to hit a sophomore slump? Probably. You're probably going to see a setback at some point. But what the Cardinals are trying to build, I view Masyn Winn as a piece of that core to the same degree as Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman.
Yeah, and the reason I had him lower is I don't feel that he is that part of the core. I think he's a useful piece that every baseball team needs. I mean, you're right, BK, everybody needs a great shortstop. But for him, I think it's great shortstop defensively, and then what you get from the bat for him is extra. I don't know if I view him as a guy that is a part of the core for the long term for the Cardinals to have success. If the Cardinals are failing, it's not because Masyn Winn didn't reach another level. It's because the other guys didn't, and Walker and Gorman, and that's why he was lower on my list. The answers they need on Winn this year are, is there another level? And if there's not, it's completely fine. Having a guy that's 2% above league average that can hit in the 8-9 spot for you and give you gold glove caliber defense at short, that would be a huge win for the Cardinals.
Totally.
They need to figure out, though, okay, is that what he is, or is there another ceiling to his game? Does he add more power? Does he get on base at a better clip? And if he does, then maybe he starts to work his way into that conversation with Walker and Gorman for me.
And I don't know how much more he's going to get on base. In the minor leagues, he did show a little bit more of a batter's eye than what we saw from him last year at the major league level. Some of that could also be the way that he was pitched at the major league level.
Some of it could be, sorry to cut you off, some of it could be the automatic strike zone, right? That really squeezes pitchers, and at the big leagues, you don't get that.
My bigger curiosity is the power. Because down at the minor league level, he was slugging 450 or above at basically every level that he was at. Now, it is a different competition level when you get up to the big leagues compared to what you are seeing at the minor league level. You get a mistake and you can do damage against it. Last year, 32 doubles, 15 homers. Could that be more of a 40 doubles, 20 homers at the end of this season? I don't think that's crazy. It feels that way right now because we haven't seen it, but I don't think that's crazy. I mean, you look at what he did at AAA in 2023. He played 100 games, had 15 doubles and 18 homers. The power is in that bat. He just has to find access to it. And I think the struggle at times for Masyn Winn, and I think he got there in spring this year, is there are times where he almost sells out for that power. That is the opposite. He has enough natural torque in his body. This dude's going to generate power based on his contact. He hits the ball hard enough that when he hits it in the right spot, it's going to go over the fences. But when he starts to sell out for it, it actually takes away from what makes him a quality baseball player, which is that contact rate and the ability to hit to all fields. He's just a pure hitter. So I think Masyn Winn's a really good player. I do think there is still some untapped potential in there. And T-Bone's right. I do agree with him, even if it's not. Even if I end up being wrong and he's just a 270 hitter that's more of like a Tommy Edman type of a hitter at the plate, but brings more defensively than Tommy Edman did because he is established as an everyday shortstop this year. Dude, that is a great outcome for the Cardinals, and they have developed their first internal option at the shortstop position basically since Ozzie Smith. In the last 25-plus years, you haven't necessarily had a guy that is set it and forget it at this position the way that Masyn Winn has become. So that's a super valuable thing.
And what I'm curious to see with the power that you're just talking about, where he got to it there at AAA, and you said, you wonder if there's some that is untapped. I wonder if it has been tapped into, and you're seeing the ballpark effect, right? Which is at Memphis, very much more friendly ballpark than it is here in St. Louis. And again, that's not the worst case scenario because he's above league average. But that is one thing that I am curious about is, okay, did we see what his power really is? And it is what it was last year, which was right at about 15. And is it that what would equal Memphis, which is the 19 if you're playing in a more friendly ballpark? I think that could be something worth keeping an eye on this year.
All right, I did want to ask you this question. You guys know it's spring training. That means it's extension season across Major League Baseball. Cal Raleigh was just awarded a contract extension. He earned it. 6 years, $105 million from the Seattle Mariners. Now, he is in a different spot right now than Masyn Winn is. Cal Raleigh is in year 1 of arbitration, and he's already making real money. He is set to earn $5.6 million this year via arbitration, and this is year 1 of him being an ARB, so he has 2 years remaining before hitting free agency in 2028. They decided to buy those years out. They're giving him this deal, again, $105 million over a 6-year contract. If you see something similar this year to what you saw last year with Masyn Winn, he'll be in a pretty interesting spot heading into arbitration in 2 years where he'll probably get something similar to what Cal Raleigh got. Their wins above replacement numbers, their overall metrics are pretty similar in that regard. Would you consider an extension with Winn after this year if he has a similar season this year to what he did a year ago? Or are you playing this thing out the way that you have with some of your other young players?
I'm playing this thing out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm playing this thing out. I'm not in a position, if I'm the Cardinals, to be handing out any long-term extensions for any of the younger guys until, in my opinion, I need to see it for 3+ years.
Yeah, I'm not doing it either. To me, as I mentioned earlier, he doesn't fit into the core of this guy really lifts the organization to its next iteration of success. He's a guy that is a part of it, but because to me he's not part of the core, I'm not extending him. I would not.
I would. This is the guy that I would do it for.
I'm not surprised.
I need to see the same thing this year. I think with the Cardinals, what they have run into where it's been problematic for them is guys that have really good success in year one, and then the second year they have that rubber band effect where all hell breaks loose, right? We saw it with Gorman. We saw it with Walker. We saw it with, who else was it? Carlson.
Yeah.
To a degree
O'Neal.
with Tyler O'Neill.
This
but
argument's not working in your favor.
No. I actually think it is. The reason why I'm waiting right now is because of that. The fear of what we have seen from previous prospects that are now hindering my ability to get all in on Masyn Winn. I worry a bit that he has a 650 OPS this year instead of 750. Like it goes in the wrong direction and he becomes more of a defensive-minded shortstop than offense. I'm not super concerned about it because I like the player, but that would be the concern. If he goes out there and does it again, he puts up the same season this year that he did a year ago, he will have done what all of those guys I just mentioned failed to do. None of them had that second season to back up that success with more information that suggests this is real. So that would be the thing that ends up potentially pushing me in that direction. The other thing, like this Cal Raleigh deal, 6 years, $105 million. Maybe it's something more like a 7-year, $90 million deal for Masyn Winn. It's not something you're going to have to break the bank for. There's probably option years on there that are pretty team friendly because you're basically just saying, here's guaranteed money up front, and in return, you get to buy out some of those years. I think that's worthwhile for a guy like Masyn Winn. We're really early on this. This all requires him to have a good season this year, but it's something I'm considering after the season if he gets there.
And for me, he would have to really show an improvement offensively, like really take that step from instead of being 2% above league average, like 15% above league average, for me to go and have a conversation about extension. Because the thing about his WAR is carried by his defense, and those guys I'm less likely to extend, unlike Cal Raleigh, whose WAR is carried by his offense. I mean, a year ago, 34 homers and 100 RBIs. That guy I'm more willing to pay.
But also defense. His defense also carries a lot of those numbers. If you look into it under the hood,
yeah. But I mean, like, he's also got like the actual statistics of in terms of batting 34 homers in that ballpark in Seattle. That guy I'm paying more than I am a Masyn Winn, who is more of the defensive side of
hit for
things.
Average or get on base at a super high clip.
But I love slugging.
I was about to say, I know you're ignoring like all of the other numbers, but overall he's like a 15% above league average guy.
He's almost 20. Don't short my guy Cal Raleigh.
For his career, he's been roughly a 15% above league average guy.
I'm bringing it back.
He's very good defensively, and a lot of his value comes from that side of the ball. That is not to say anything negative about Cal Raleigh. He's a good player. The same thing could be said of Masyn Winn. So I'll be curious to see where things are at the end of this season. I do think he is one of the building blocks for this team. We can quibble on just where he ranks in that and the value of having a player that is a slightly above league average hitter at that position that plays Gold Glove level defense, but Masyn Winn fits into that somewhere. Now you got to build around him. He's Alex's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Rhino Shield. When it comes to the exterior of your home, you want it to look perfect. You want your house to always look brand new. And when you try and do it yourself with just paint over the store hardware, that's not going to last. It's going to wear and tear. It's going to deteriorate. You're going to get water stains. Paint start to chip. The UV rays are going to tear it down, and you'll be painting it year after year after year. But with Rhino Shield, they use a ceramic coating process that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any other paint that you're going to put on the exterior of your home. And I speak so highly because I'm a customer of Rhino Shields. I used it when we moved into our home back in 2020. But Darren always sends me pictures out in Perryville. Darren sent me a picture of a house that they went from a really old, worn-down looking home to brand new with a nice shade of blue. Another one that had a ton of just dirt on the siding, and now it's a nice, crisp gray color. This is the work you get with Rhino Shield. Call Darren today. It's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, and it's all backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. 877-25-RHINO. That's 877-25RHINO.com.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. It is sponsored by Schaefer Door Company.
What the? What just happened?
I guess we lost faith in you doing it.
Can I hit the dump button on myself and say
Hey,
a
Alex,
word?
here we go. You ready?
No.
The 101
no.
ESPN
Bleep
app
you.
is free to download. It is easy to use, and it is sponsored by
No, yeah, pay attention.
No.
This is why you can't do
No,
this.
this is his fault. This is trash.
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
You. Of all the idiots.
Don't worry, man. All of the bosses
If
are
all-
sitting right there.
If all the idiots
listening.
and all the idiot worlds, you, sir, stand alone.
So, you can check
Are
that out.
all the bosses
podcast
behind
page.
me, seriously?
Or, yep, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is where you could go as well. T-Bone breaks everything down, puts it over there after the show, and you can click through what is the specific segment that you want to listen to. If you're a Blues fan, you can listen to just all the Blues segments. We had Tyson Nash on. We had Jeremy Rutherford on earlier today. So you can check that all out after the show today.
And the studio cams are brought to you by Air Alliance Team. Nailed it.
You want me to do one more?
Yeah, let's do one
You
more.
can join me on Saturday at the Genesis of St. Charles for an afternoon filled with fun and excitement. Saturday from 1 to 3. Bring the whole family by. Face painting. Balloon artists will be there. Food truck, special appearances by Louie and the Blue Crew as well. I will be there as well to give you a pair of tickets. I'm giving out a pair of tickets to a Blues home game. That's Saturday from 1 to 3 o'clock. It's out in St. Charles at Genesis of St. Charles, located at 5601 Veterans Memorial Parkway. All the details for that can be found at 101ESPN.com. All right, Alex, before we get out of here, it was revealed yesterday the Cardinals are probably going to have a different look to the lineup on opening day. Lars Nootbaar is likely to be the leadoff hitter, according to what we saw yesterday in their final tune-up game against the Memphis Redbirds. They had Wilson Contreras second, Brendan Donovan third, Nolan Arenado fourth, Alec Burleson as the DH batting fifth, which seems to suggest Nolan Gorman is indeed the odd man out. And then Herrera, Walker, Scott, and Masyn Winn batting ninth. What did you make of their potential opening day lineup?
Not surprised by it. We talked about kind of the three-hole hitter, and honestly, that's their weakest spot right now. But I personally like 5 through 9. I think there has a lot of threat to where other teams aren't expecting it with a guy like Alec Burleson, Ivan Herrera, Jordan Walker, and then you've got that speed element with Scott and Masyn Winn. You know, we talked earlier in the show about like breakout candidates who could be. I think somebody in your 5 through 9, potentially 2 guys, maybe 3 guys, there's your breakout candidacy from 5 through 9 in this batting order.
We will have a full breakdown of this on the new podcast that's going to be released weekly here on 101 ESPN. Myself and Tanner Hendrickson. It is an updated edition.
You guys are doing a podcast?
Of the Redbird Report. We're actually coming through with it this time. It is unfortunately not the theology podcast.
Not the politics.
It is not the politics podcast. It is not the dad pod, but we did come through with one. We will be doing the Redbird Report. It will be weekly. It will be with myself and Tanner Hendrickson. You'll be able to check that out on YouTube after the show. You'll be able to check it out wherever it is that you get podcasts. So if you have not downloaded it, you have not subscribed to it in the past, be sure to check it out today. Again, it's the Redbird Report. That is where our podcast will be going. We'll be talking about the Cardinals for close to an hour each and every week between myself and Tanner Hendrickson.
T-Bone. I deal with this guy. We deal with this guy 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday.
Luckily, it's
T-Bone
only-
And
said,
you're like,
"What about
let's
one
do
more?"
another more?
I know.
What are you doing, man?
You know, my love for Cardinals baseball can deal with the Tone Ranger over there for
Even
another
with this
hour.
season, this season's going to be brutal, and you
I
got to
know.
deal with that for an
That's
hour.
true. I don't know if the timing was picked perfectly for
T-Bone.
which
Of
season
all
to start.
years for us to
Yeah.
be like, you know what? We should dive headfirst into the podcast game, talking about the St. Louis Cardinals every single week.
Should have started with the dad pod.
No chance this is a BKO.
Dad
no
pod.
chance that that's the case for this.
100
I only-
losses
good
in
thing
an
I only
hour
said
every
they could
week.
lose 100, so it's fine.
Maybe start like with 25 minutes and go from there.
All right, Alex. The Blues back in action this evening against the Canadians. It's at home. You'll be out there for pregame coverage starting at 6. And because you are a glutton for punishment, you will also be doing the fast lane from 4 to 6. So you're just on the radio basically all day long. The number one thing that you're looking for in this game between the Blues and the Canadians is what?
Can you correct the issues that arose these last 2 games? You're going up against legitimately the second best team since the Four Nations break behind yourself. So this is not going to be an easy game. You're also going to have to deal with a lot of speed. Montreal plays very fast. So how does your defense without Colton Parayko handle that? And then I'm going to be looking at Binnington too. It's the first time we've seen a goalie get 2 starts in a row since before the 6-game win streak, if I'm not mistaken. So I think you're going to be in for another playoff-like atmosphere between 2 teams, and Montreal has not been able to say that for a long time.
He's Alex. He'll be on the pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock. He'll be back in with the fast lane starting at 4:15 as well. So just stay tuned here on 101 ESPN. You'll get plenty of Alex Ferrario here on the station. I'm Brandon Kiley. That's Tanner Hendrickson. Again, the Redbird Report podcast debut episode will be released later on this evening. So if you're a Cardinals fan, you want to check that out, stay tuned for that. It'll be released on all of the social sites as well. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next here on 101 ESPN.